Welcome, dear listeners, to tonight's journey into the shadows. Canada is a land of breathtaking landscapes, from jagged mountain ranges to vast prairies, icy tundras, and endless coastlines. But beneath this natural beauty lies something darker: stories of restless spirits, eerie legends, and chilling encounters. Tonight, we'll explore the 25 most haunted natural places in Canada, terrifying landscapes where the boundary between the living and the dead is said to blur. Settle in, keep the lights low, and prepare yourself, because once you wander into these haunted places, the wilderness may never feel the same again. The Nahanni Valley, hidden deep within the rugged expanse of the Northwest Territories, is one of Canada's most haunting landscapes. Known by many as the Valley of the Headless Men, this place carries a reputation that chills even the bravest adventurers. Cloaked in mist, surrounded by jagged peaks, and filled with rushing rivers that carve through narrow gorges, the valley is both breathtaking and terrifying. For centuries, stories have swirled about what dwells in its shadows. Some whisper of gold veins hidden in the cliffs, cursed treasures that have lured men to their deaths. Others speak of malevolent spirits, unseen watchers who punish those who trespass. Whatever the truth, the Nahanni Valley has earned its name through blood, fear, and mystery. The story of the valley begins long before prospectors and trappers set foot there. Indigenous peoples of the region, including the Dean, knew the land well and avoided certain areas. They told stories of evil spirits and strange happenings in the mountains and valleys. Hunters reported eerie voices carried on the wind, shadows that moved against the firelight, and a sense of being followed even when the wilderness was empty. The Dean considered much of the Nahanni a forbidden land, a place where respect for unseen powers was mandatory. They warned outsiders not to wander into certain canyons or to disturb the river's restless waters. Few listened. When Europeans arrived in the 19th and early 20th centuries, they saw not haunted ground but potential wealth. Gold fever had gripped the north, and rumors spread that the Nahanni Valley contained untapped riches. It was during this gold rush frenzy that the valley's darkest reputation was cemented. Prospectors eager for fortune set out into the wild terrain. Many never returned. Those who were found sometimes told disturbing tales of disorientation, of hearing footsteps behind them in the snow, of strange lights flickering in the woods at night. And then there were those whose bodies were discovered headless. These discoveries gave the valley its most infamous name, the Valley of the Headless Men. Between 1908 and the 1940s, several such cases shocked the region. Two brothers, Willie and Frank McLeod, were among the earliest victims. They vanished while searching for gold in 1908. 2 years later, their remains were found along the Nahanni River. Both men had been decapitated. Their skulls were never found. Locals whispered that the land had claimed them, that some unseen guardian had punished them for trespassing. The pattern repeated in the years that followed. Other trappers and fortune seekers entered the valley and met similar fates. Decapitated bodies were discovered, fueling speculation that something or someone was hunting them. Was it murder by rival prospectors, eager to guard the valley's riches? Or was it something more sinister? Something not human at all? No one could say for certain. Lawmen and investigators who tried to piece together the mystery found little evidence. The murders, if they were murders, were never solved. And the Nahanni Valley's reputation only grew darker. The physical landscape itself contributes to the eerie atmosphere. The Nahanni River carves through narrow canyons, flanked by towering cliffs. Mist rises from hot springs, scattered through the wilderness. Waterfalls thunder from dizzying heights, their sound echoing through the valleys like ghostly voices. The mountains close in on travelers, cutting them off from escape. In winter, blizzards bury the land in silence. In summer, the sun lingers, but shadows seem to cling stubbornly to the rocks. Those who spend time here often describe a sense of unease, as though the valley itself is alive and watching. Compass needles spin unpredictably. Weather shifts without warning, and there are places where sound seems to vanish entirely, as if swallowed by the cliffs. This unnatural stillness has unnerved countless visitors. Legends suggest that spirits guard the valley's secrets. Some say the decapitated men were victims of these guardians, punished for their greed. Others tell of a lost tribe or hidden people who protect the valley from outsiders. A few believe in a more monstrous explanation, that something predatory stalks the wilderness, a creature that claims heads as trophies. These are only stories, yet the facts remain. Bodies were found, skulls missing, and the mystery has never been solved. Over the decades, the Nahanni Valley has become the subject of countless retellings. Explorers and adventurers have written about their unnerving journeys through the region. They speak of hearing voices when no one else is present, of seeing shapes moving in the mist, of finding strange markings on rocks that vanish when examined more closely. Photographs have occasionally shown odd distortions, as if figures linger just out of frame. Paranormal researchers have long suspected that the valley is a site of concentrated energy, a kind of vortex where the natural and supernatural bleed together. The combination of natural beauty and unexplained danger makes the Nahanni one of the most terrifying landscapes in Canada. The Dean stories add another layer of darkness. They tell of evil spirits, known as Yamoria, who once fought giants and monsters in the region. Some of these spirits, the legends claim, were trapped in the land itself, bound to its cliffs and rivers. They manifest in strange ways: voices on the wind, lights in the trees, sudden storms. Travelers who show disrespect may draw their wrath. Even the name Nahanni is believed to have roots in words describing forbidden or dangerous places. To the people who lived here long before prospectors, the valley's reputation was not new. It was ancient, passed down through generations as a warning. Banff National Park, Alberta, is known worldwide for its breathtaking scenery, towering snow-capped peaks, turquoise lakes, and lush evergreen forests that stretch as far as the eye can see. Tourists come from across the globe to hike its trails, ski its slopes, and immerse themselves in its natural beauty. Yet, beneath the postcard-perfect image lies a different side to Banff, one filled with ghostly whispers, chilling encounters, and legends that cling as tightly to the mountains as the morning fog. For some, Banff is not only a place of natural wonder, but also a realm where the veil between the living and the dead feels unusually thin. One of the most well-known supernatural hotspots in the area is the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel, often referred to as the Castle in the Rockies. This towering stone structure, with its steep gables and looming turrets, looks like something plucked straight out of a Gothic novel. While guests flock here for luxury and stunning mountain views, others come for an entirely different reason: the hotel's reputation as one of the most haunted places in Canada. Reports of ghostly figures wandering the halls have circulated for decades. Some visitors describe the apparition of a bride in a flowing white gown, forever frozen in the moment of her tragic death. The legend claims that, long ago, a young woman preparing for her wedding slipped on the grand staircase, her dress catching fire from the candles lining the hall. Her fall was fatal, but many insist her restless spirit still roams the hotel. Guests and staff have reported seeing her gliding silently across the ballroom or standing alone on the staircase, her face hidden beneath her veil. Another famous tale tied to the hotel is that of room 873, a chamber supposedly bricked up after a gruesome family murder. Though the hotel management has long denied the story, visitors swear they've seen the outlines of the sealed doorway along a corridor. Some even claim to have heard muffled cries or seen bloody handprints materialize and fade on the wall where the door once stood. Whether truth or legend, the atmosphere around that hallway is undeniably heavy, and guests often report an unshakable sense of dread when passing through it. Yet the Fairmont Banff Springs is not the only place where spirits are said to wander. Beyond the hotel grounds, Banff National Park itself is steeped in eerie tales. The wilderness here is vast and unforgiving, and many who entered it throughout history never returned. Hikers and explorers have long spoken of spectral figures on the trail's hazy silhouettes that vanish when approached, or lone wanderers who seem to be made of mist. Along the Bow River, which cuts gracefully through the park, one of the most chilling legends persists. On quiet, moonlit nights, Witnesses claim to hear the thunder of phantom horses galloping across the water. Some have even seen their ghostly forms, translucent yet unmistakable, charging along the riverbank before dissolving into the night air. The origins of these apparitions are uncertain. Some believe they are tied to early explorers and fur traders whose horses drowned during dangerous crossings. Others suggest they are linked to indigenous stories of spirit animals guiding or warning travelers. Whatever the case, the sound of hooves echoing across the still river has left many who hear it shaken and unnerved. There are also accounts of disembodied voices heard deep in the forest, whispers carried on the wind that seem to follow those who wander too far from the main trails. Campers have reported feeling watched, their fires casting shadows that seem to move with a mind of their own. At times, a sudden chill sweeps through the trees even in the height of summer, as though an unseen presence has passed by. While skeptics might chalk these experiences up to imagination or the eerie effects of isolation in the wilderness, those who have felt it know the sensation is far too real to dismiss. Banff's history adds weight to its spectral legends. The land holds stories not only of indigenous peoples, whose spiritual connections to the mountains and rivers run deep, but also of miners, railway workers, and settlers who carved their lives into this harsh landscape. Many endured tragedy, avalanches, accidents, or isolation, and it is not difficult to imagine that some never truly left. The Canadian Pacific Railway, which brought visitors and workers through these rugged mountains in the late 19th century, has its own share of haunting stories. Workers lost in blasting accidents or buried in rockslides are said to still linger along the tracks. On certain nights, some hikers have described the sound of a train whistle piercing the stillness, even when no train is anywhere near. The eerie beauty of Banff National Park lies in its contrasts. By day, the scenery inspires. Crystal clear lakes like Lake Louise and Moraine Lake shine in brilliant shades of turquoise, and the air is filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers. But when night falls, the wilderness takes on another character altogether. The mountains loom darker, the forests grow restless, and the silence feels heavy, broken only by strange noises that have no clear source. For those attuned to the supernatural, Banff becomes a place where the living world blends seamlessly with the world of shadows. Visitors who come seeking only adventure might find themselves leaving with far more than photographs. The stories of the spectral bride, the phantom horses, and the unseen figures on the trails all serve as reminders that even in the most beautiful of places, there can linger a profound sense of mystery. Banff National Park may be a natural wonder, but for many who have walked its paths or slept beneath its stars, it is also a land haunted by echoes of the past, echoes that continue to reach out from the silence of the mountains. Would you like me to also expand this to around 1,500 to 2,000 words, with more detailed ghost stories from the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel, indigenous lore, and missing hiker accounts, so your voiceover has more chilling depth? The Bay of Fundy, straddling the coasts of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, is one of Canada's natural wonders. Known around the world for its record-breaking tides, which can rise and fall by as much as 50 feet in a single day, it is a place of raw power and beauty. Twice a day, the waters rush in and out of the bay with a force so strong that entire rivers reverse their course. But beyond the science, beyond the spectacle of nature's force, the Bay of Fundy carries a reputation far darker. Sailors, fishermen, and locals whisper of strange lights on the horizon, cries that ride the winds at night, and ghostly ships that appear only to vanish into the mist. For as long as people have lived on its shores, the bay has been a place not just of wonder, but of haunting mystery. Centuries of maritime history are tied to the Bay of Fundy. Its tides, while awe-inspiring, are also treacherous. Countless ships have run aground, swallowed by hidden shoals, or torn apart by storms that seemed to rise out of nowhere. Many of these wrecks never released their crews, leaving the waters heavy with tragedy. These lost souls are said to linger, their restless spirits clinging to the bay, appearing as apparitions to those who venture too close. Among the most chilling stories are those of ghost ships. Fishermen, out on the water before dawn, tell of seeing tall masted vessels materializing in the distance, their sails glowing faintly against the gray mist. At first, these ships appear real, moving steadily across the water, as though cutting a path through the tide. But no sound of rigging, no creak of wood, and no splash of oars accompanies them. And then, just as quickly as they appear, they dissolve back into the fog, leaving behind only silence. For some, these ships are omens of storms or tragedies to come. Others believe they are the spirits of sailors, eternally replaying their doomed voyages, trapped in the cycles of the bay, just as the tides themselves are. One of the most enduring legends is that of a burning ghost ship. Accounts stretch back hundreds of years, describing a massive vessel engulfed in flames, drifting silently along the horizon. Witnesses say the fire consumes the sails and rigging, yet the ship never sinks. Sometimes figures are seen on the deck, waving frantically for help that never comes. When would-be rescuers row toward the apparition, the ship fades before their eyes, leaving nothing but fog and churning water. Historians suggest the story may have been inspired by the many shipboard fires that plagued wooden vessels in the 18th and 19th centuries. But for those who have seen the burning ship firsthand, there is no explanation of the chilling certainty that the dead are reaching out from the past. The Bay of Fundy also carries the voices of its lost sailors. On stormy nights, when the wind howls across the cliffs and the surf pounds against the rocks, people claim to hear cries drifting across the waves. They are not the natural sounds of wind or water, but human voices pleading, calling out, sometimes screaming in despair. Some say the cries belong to fishermen who drowned in sudden squalls, their bodies never recovered. Others believe they are the voices of entire crews from wrecked ships, forever replaying their final, desperate moments. Campers along the bay report waking in the night to these sounds, only to find the sea eerily calm when they step outside. The phantom horses of the Bay of Fundy are another strange and enduring mystery. Along the Bow River in Banff, the stories tell of spectral riders, but here, in Fundy's shifting mists, it is the thunder of hooves that echoes across the water. According to local legend, during the age of wooden ships, vessels often carried livestock as cargo. In one tale, a storm struck a ship carrying a group of horses, capsizing it and dragging both the animals and their handlers into the waves. To this day, some say, the sound of phantom hooves can be heard pounding across the surface of the bay on moonlit nights, as if the horses are still running for their lives, forever caught between sea and sky. Lighthouses dotting the Fundy coast add to its haunted reputation. St. Martin's, Cape Enrage, and other historic beacons have their own ghostly lore, with keepers said to still watch over their towers long after death. Visitors sometimes report shadowy figures pacing inside lantern rooms or along rocky shores, even when the lighthouses have long since been automated or abandoned. The keepers, perhaps, remain bound to their duty, ensuring that ships passing through the bay as dangerous waters do not suffer the same fate as so many before them. The natural landscape itself seems to encourage these hauntings. The constant motion of the tides creates thick, rolling fog that can shroud the bay for hours. This fog distorts sound, carrying voices and noises in strange ways, making it easy to mistake the crash of a wave for a distant cry, or the wind for a whispered voice. The cliffs and sea caves amplify these effects, creating an atmosphere where reality and imagination blur. It is no wonder, then, that so many stories have taken root here. To the Micmac and Maliseet peoples, who have lived along the Bay of Fundy for generations, the waters are deeply spiritual. Legends tell of powerful spirits dwelling in the tides, shaping the bay's rhythms and protecting its people. Some elders suggest that the ghostly ships and voices heard today are echoes of these ancient spirits, reminders that the bay is a place where the natural and supernatural meet. The Bay of Fundy remains a place of contradictions, breathtaking beauty paired with unsettling mystery. Tourists arrive each year to witness its extraordinary tides, but many leave with stories of strange encounters they cannot explain. Fishermen still glance nervously into the mist, half expecting to see a burning ship or hear the cries of the drowned. And as the waters surge in and out, as steady and relentless as time itself, the bay keeps its secrets, reminding all who visit that even in the most stunning places, the echoes of the past linger on. Wapask National Park in northern Manitoba is one of the most remote and forbidding landscapes in all of Canada. A vast stretch of tundra hugging the shores of Hudson Bay. It is best known as one of the world's premier polar bear sanctuaries. Each year, thousands of visitors brave the harsh conditions to witness the great white bears as they emerge from their dens, padding silently across the frozen earth. Yet alongside the undeniable majesty of the region lies a darker, more mysterious reputation, one that speaks of shadowy beings, ghostly figures, and strange lights that dance across the sky in ways that defy explanation. For those who know its legends, Wapask is not only a place of nature's extremes, but also one of haunting mysteries. Long before the park was officially designated in the 1990s, Indigenous communities told stories of the land that warned travelers of dangers, not just from the wildlife, but from otherworldly presences that seemed woven into the tundra itself. Elders spoke of beings made of shadow, who would appear at the edges of camps during long Arctic nights. Hunters described figures that seemed to stand just beyond the firelight, dark silhouettes against the snow, silent and unmoving. When approached, the figures would vanish as if they were never there. These stories were not meant to frighten, but to remind people that Wapask was a place where the physical and spiritual worlds overlapped, and that respect must always be shown to the land and its mysteries. Modern visitors, too, have carried unsettling accounts away from their time in the park. Researchers and wildlife observers who stay in remote cabins have reported waking in the middle of the night to the sound of crunching snow just outside their walls, only to find no tracks in the morning. Some have claimed to see dark shapes moving across the tundra at dusk, shapes too tall and upright to be animals, yet too indistinct to be clearly human. The isolation of the park magnifies these moments. With no nearby towns or lights, and only the endless sweep of snow and ice stretching for miles, every sound carries, and every shadow lingers longer than it should. Adding to the atmosphere of mystery are the strange lights that have been reported over the region for centuries. The northern lights are, of course, a common sight here. Shimmering ribbons of green and purple that paint the sky on cold winter nights. But alongside these known displays, there are other accounts, lights that appear low to the ground, glowing orbs that drift silently across the tundra, and flashes that seem to erupt suddenly before disappearing into the black sky. Some attribute these to natural phenomena, like reflections or electrical disturbances caused by the magnetic fields so strong in this region. But to those who have seen them, the lights feel deliberate, as though they are guiding or perhaps warning those who watch from below. One story often retold by locals involves a group of scientists who came to study the polar bear populations in the late 1970s. Staying in a small research station, they were awakened one night by what they described as a chorus of cries echoing across the tundra. The voices were not those of animals, but sounded distinctly human, pleading, wailing, carried on the wind. When they stepped outside, they saw no one. Instead, the horizon glowed faintly with a pulsing light, not the dancing aurora, but something steadier, like a lantern burning in the distance. When they attempted to approach, the light blinked out, and the cries stopped as suddenly as they began. The next morning, they found no footprints, no evidence that anyone had passed through the area. The event was never explained. Indigenous oral traditions also speak of spirits that wander the frozen tundra, sometimes taking the form of animals, other times appearing as shadowy figures. Some legends describe them as guardians of the land, warning humans to tread carefully. Others see them as restless souls, forever wandering the endless plains. Hunters have told of seeing a bear with glowing eyes, too large and too swift to be natural, vanishing into the ice without leaving tracks. Travelers moving across the frozen ground sometimes report the sensation of being followed, the crunch of footsteps echoing in rhythm with their own. Yet, when they turn, the land lies empty, silent, and endless. The harsh environment itself seems to contribute to these eerie experiences. The tundra is a place of extremes where, Temperatures plummet, winds howl without mercy, and the sun disappears for long stretches in winter. The isolation can distort the senses, and the mind plays tricks in the endless dark. Still, too many accounts have accumulated for the stories to be dismissed entirely. When so many unrelated witnesses report the same shadowy presences, the same unexplained lights, the same chilling sounds carried on the wind, the mysteries of Wapusk begin to feel like more than imagination. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the park is how quickly the line between the living world and the unknown seems to blur. A hiker can marvel at the majestic sight of polar bears in the morning, only to feel the creeping unease of unseen eyes watching them by nightfall. A researcher may step out to admire the northern lights, only to catch sight of a dark silhouette lingering just beyond the glow. In Wapusk, beauty and terror walk hand in hand, and those who visit leave with a sense that the land itself is alive, watching, and waiting. Wapusk National Park remains a sanctuary for wildlife and a destination for those seeking the raw majesty of Canada's northern wilderness. Yet, it is also a place of secrets, where shadows move in the periphery, where voices echo without source, and where strange lights remind visitors that some mysteries cannot be explained. It is a reminder that even in the most remote corners of the earth, there are stories older than memory, whispered across the snow and carried in the cold Arctic wind stories that ensure Wapusk is as haunted as it is breathtaking. Mount Robson, the towering monarch of the Canadian Rockies, has a way of humbling even the most experienced mountaineers. At nearly 13,000 feet, it rises above jagged ridges and deep valleys, its snow-capped summit often hidden behind a shroud of swirling clouds. For generations, Indigenous peoples of the region have regarded the mountain with reverence and caution, warning that it is a place of both great power and danger. They speak of unseen forces dwelling in its heights, spirits who guard the land and punish those who dare approach with arrogance. To many, Mount Robson is not simply a mountain, it is a presence, watching, waiting, and at times, haunting those who cross into its domain. Climbers who attempt to scale its slopes often describe a strange unease, a feeling that grows stronger the higher they climb. Long before ropes and ice axes come into play, there is the sensation of being observed. Many report hearing whispers carried on the wind, voices too faint to understand, yet too distinct to dismiss as imagination. These disembodied murmurs have been heard most often at night, when tents flap in the fierce alpine wind and snow crunches under unseen footsteps outside. Some mountaineers have even awakened to find faint silhouettes standing just beyond the edge of camp, vanishing the moment they were looked at directly. One of the most chilling stories comes from a climbing party in the mid-20th century. A small group had set up camp near the Emperor Face, one of the most challenging and dangerous sections of the mountain. Exhausted, they tried to sleep, but during the night they were roused by what they thought was another team approaching. The sound of crunching boots, muffled voices, and the distinct clang of climbing gear echoed nearby. Yet when they peered out of their tents, there was no one there. Their headlamps illuminated only empty snowfields. The noises continued for hours, moving around their camp until dawn finally drove them away. Terrified, the climbers abandoned their attempt and descended, convinced they had encountered the ghosts of those who had perished on the peak before them. Indeed, Mount Robson has claimed many lives. Its ridges are notoriously treacherous, with avalanches, sudden storms, and sheer ice walls ending countless expeditions. Over the decades, some climbers have vanished entirely, their bodies never recovered. In such an unforgiving landscape, the mountain has become a graveyard of sorts, and many believe that the restless spirits of those lost remain tethered to the ridges, eternally retracing their fatal climbs. Hikers who wander near the lower slopes sometimes glimpse solitary figures ascending the ridgelines, dressed in outdated gear from another era. These phantom mountaineers never respond to calls, never pause to rest, and often vanish mid-step, dissolving into the mist. The indigenous stories echo these experiences, though with far deeper roots. Elders tell of shadow beings that move across the tundra and the cliffs, watchers who guard the sacred places of the mountain. They appear at the edge of vision, tall and dark, yet never fully defined. For those who see them, it is taken as a warning to leave the mountain undisturbed. Some legends even suggest that the mountain itself is alive, capable of luring climbers into danger with false trails and deceptive weather, testing the respect and humility of those who approach. Adding to this air of mystery are the strange lights reported around the summit. Over the years, multiple accounts have surfaced of glowing orbs drifting above the ridges, or streaks of light flashing across the cliffs with no natural explanation. Some describe them as resembling lanterns moving in the night, while others compare them to the northern lights compressed into small, dancing shapes. Pilots flying near the mountain have occasionally reported these phenomena as well, noting that the lights appear to hover or pulse before abruptly vanishing. Whether these are atmospheric illusions, electrical phenomena, or something supernatural, no one has been able to prove. The Bow River Valley, which stretches near the base of the mountain, carries its own share of ghostly lore tied to Mount Robson. Hikers and campers in the area have told of hearing phantom horses galloping through the night, their hoofbeats reverberating across the riverbanks, though no animals were anywhere near. Some believe these are echoes of indigenous warriors long past, while others connect them to tragic accidents of settlers who attempted to cross the wilderness and never returned. The sounds often come hand in hand with the cries of voices carried on the wind, mournful and haunting, as though warning travelers not to venture further. Despite the countless tales of spirits, apparitions, and strange lights, the allure of Mount Robson has never waned. Climbers still flock to its slopes, drawn by the challenge and majesty of Canada's tallest Rocky Mountain. Yet, even among the bravest mountaineers, there remains an unspoken acknowledgement. The mountain chooses who may reach its summit and who must stay behind. Those who return often carry stories that blur the line between survival and the supernatural. Mount Robson stands as a symbol of beauty and terror, a place where the veil between the natural and the spiritual seems dangerously thin. Its snowfields and cliffs may inspire awe, but they also hold whispers, shadows, and the lingering presence of those who never made it back. For anyone who dares approach, the lesson is clear on this mountain. The past is never truly gone, and the spirits of Mount Robson are always watching. The Queen, Charlotte Islands, now more widely known as Haida Gwaii, sit off the northern coast of British Columbia, a chain of rugged islands where mountains rise from the sea and dense forests seem to breathe with ancient life. This archipelago is not just remarkable for its stunning natural beauty, but also for the spiritual weight it carries. For the Haida people, these islands are the heart of creation, a sacred place where the line between the living and the supernatural has always been thin. To walk the mossy paths beneath towering cedars, or to hear the crashing waves along the mist-covered shores, is to step into a landscape that feels alive, whispering stories that stretch back thousands of years. Many who visit leave with the unsettling sense that they were never truly alone, that unseen eyes followed their every move. Among the most enduring legends of Haida Gwaii are the spirits said to linger in its ancient forests. The Haida have long believed that the land itself holds memory, that every tree, stone, and stream is imbued with the essence of those who came before. Elders tell stories of shadowy figures that slip silently between the trees, neither fully of this world nor the next. These beings are not always hostile, but they are watchful. Travelers moving too carelessly through the woods often describe the prickling sensation of being observed, their footsteps echoing as though mirrored by another. Some hikers report catching fleeting glimpses of figures draped in cloaks of fog, disappearing the moment one dares to look directly at them. Whether these are spirits of ancestors, guardians of the land, or something far more ominous, no one can say for certain, but the impression they leave is always chilling. The ocean, too, holds its share of restless souls. The shores of Haida Gwaii have witnessed countless shipwrecks, from the canoes of warriors long ago to colonial vessels swallowed by violent storms. Fishermen and sailors alike tell of ghost ships that appear suddenly on the horizon, their sails tattered, their hulls glowing faintly in the twilight, only to vanish when approached. These phantom vessels are said to carry the drowned, warriors and sailors alike, eternally reliving their final voyage across the merciless sea. Some claim that on stormy nights, you can hear their cries rising above the roar of the waves. The desperate shouts of men who died in battle or were claimed by the sea. The voices carry across the water, haunting reminders that the ocean does not easily give up its dead. Perhaps the most unsettling encounters are those of drowned warriors whose spirits are said to haunt the rugged shores. The Haida were fierce seafarers and defenders of their homeland, and tales abound of battles fought upon the waves. It is said that those who perished in such struggles are not at rest but continue to wander, their mournful cries echoing through the mist. Visitors walking along the beaches at night often report hearing distant chants or the rhythmic beat of war drums carried by the wind, only to find the shoreline empty. In some stories, the spirits manifest as dark silhouettes moving along the water's edge, disappearing into the spray before a witness can get too close. These spectral warriors serve as a reminder of the island's turbulent past and the blood that was spilled to defend it. The sense of being watched pervades every corner of Haida Gwaii, even in moments of calm when the sea is still, and the forest quiet. There is a presence in the air, as though the land itself is aware of those who tread upon it. Many visitors describe sudden chills, moments where the forest grows unnaturally silent, and feelings of dread that come without explanation. Some believe it is the spirits of ancestors keeping watch, ensuring respect is paid to the land. Others whisper that the islands harbor something far older, entities tied not to human memory, but to the raw, primal essence of the earth itself. The Haida themselves have long spoken of supernatural beings that dwell within the forests, mountains, and waters, powerful forces that demand reverence and caution. Adding to the eerie atmosphere are the strange lights that have occasionally been seen in the skies above the islands. For centuries, people have reported luminous orbs hovering over the water or darting through the treetops, vanishing without sound. Some interpret these as spirits guiding the living, while others view them as warnings of danger to come. There are even tales of travelers who followed such lights into the forest, only to become hopelessly lost, wandering in circles until dawn broke and the lights faded. Whether these glowing apparitions are spirits, natural phenomena, or something beyond human comprehension, they only add to the mystery of Haida Gwaii. Haida Gwaii is not merely a collection of islands. It is a place where myth and reality intertwine, where the land itself seems to pulse with unseen energy. For those who visit, the beauty of the archipelago is undeniable, but so too is the feeling of unease it inspires. The ancient forests whisper with voices just out of hearing. The waves conceal the cries of the lost, and the skies flicker with lights that seem to beckon from another world. To set foot here is to step into a living story, one that blurs the line between history, legend, and haunting. The spirits of Haida Gwaii endure, woven into the fabric of the land, a reminder that in this place of staggering natural wonder, the supernatural is never far away. Lake Minnewanka, nestled in the rugged beauty of Alberta's Banff National Park, is a place where natural majesty and the supernatural intertwine. Stretching over 21 kilometers, this long, glacial lake has earned the ominous nickname the Lake of the Spirits, a name that hints at the mysteries lying beneath its deep, cold waters. For centuries, the indigenous peoples of the region have told stories of spirits dwelling within the lake, guardians of the valley who watch over both the living and the dead. To wander along its shores is to enter a landscape steeped in legend, where mist rises off the water like ghostly fingers and every ripple may conceal a story from the past. Long before the creation of the modern lake, the valley was home to thriving settlements, sacred sites, and fertile lands. When the dam was built in the early 20th century, the valley was flooded, submerging entire communities beneath the waters. Today, divers exploring the lake report eerie sights, ghostly outlines of buildings, fences, and old foundations, preserved in the frigid depths. The sunken town seems to rest in perpetual twilight, its streets silent, except for the occasional stir of fish or the haunting echoes of bubbles rising to the surface. Some claim that on quiet days, you can almost feel the weight of the lives that were displaced, a lingering energy that refuses to be submerged, along with the homes. Visitors along the shore often describe strange occurrences, especially as dusk falls. A sudden chill may sweep across the water, even on the warmest summer evening, and a sense of being watched is reported by nearly every hiker or camper who ventures close to the lake. Some have heard whispers carried on the wind, indecipherable yet unmistakably human. Others speak of shadows moving just beneath the surface, shapes too fleeting to identify, leaving only a shiver and the uneasy impression that the lake itself is alive. One of the most common tales involves ghostly figures that appear near the old cabins along the shoreline. Hikers and fishermen report glimpsing silhouettes of people dressed in early 20th century clothing, moving silently along paths that no longer exist. Sometimes these figures vanish entirely as soon as they are noticed, leaving no footprints, no trace, only the memory of their presence. In some accounts, these apparitions seem to reach out, as if beckoning visitors closer to the water, only to disappear before contact is possible. The legend says these are the spirits of those who lived in the valley before the dam, forever tied to the land and the waters that swallowed their homes. Divers exploring deeper parts of Lake Minnewanka occasionally recount encounters that defy explanation. Some have heard faint music or the sound of children laughing, as if echoing from another time, while others speak of disembodied voices calling out from beneath the waves. In the darker depths, where sunlight barely penetrates, shadowy shapes are sometimes seen drifting past, moving with a purpose that seems almost intelligent. Some even report glimpsing entire structures, long-sunken cabins, and fences, as if the valley beneath the lake remains frozen in the moment it was lost. These underwater ghost towns have inspired both awe and fear among those who dare to explore. A haunting reminder of how quickly life and land can be claimed by water. Indigenous stories add an even older layer to the lake's mysteries. The Nakota and other First Nations tribes have long considered Lake Minnewanka sacred, believing that spirits inhabit the waters and surrounding mountains. Some legends tell of a guardian spirit watching over the valley and punishing those who show disrespect. Travelers have recounted feelings of unease when straying too close to certain areas, describing sudden mists or unexplained movements among the trees. Some elders say that the lake itself communicates with those who are attuned, sending warnings through ripples, gusts of wind, or faint, haunting sounds that carry across the water. Even modern-day boaters have their own chilling stories. Some report hearing the sound of paddles or footsteps on water when no one is near, while others swear they have seen ghostly canoes gliding silently across the lake at night. On particularly still evenings, the reflection of the moon on the water can seem distorted, revealing shapes just beneath the surface that vanish when approached. A few fishermen have even described seeing glowing eyes looking up from the depths, retreating with a sudden splash as if acknowledging their presence before disappearing entirely. Lake Minnewanka's allure lies not only in its natural beauty, but in its ability to evoke both awe and unease. Towering mountains rise around the water, reflecting perfectly in its surface during calm mornings. Yet these serene scenes are tinged with the weight of history. Every ripple, every shadow, seems to hint at something more than just water and rock. The whispers, apparitions, and submerged remnants of a lost valley serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone here. For those who visit, Lake Minnewanka is a place of contrasts. Its clear waters and majestic scenery inspire tranquility and wonder. Yet the stories of spirits, sunken towns, and supernatural phenomena ensure that unease is never far away. Hikers, divers, and campers alike leave with a heightened awareness, sensing the presence of lives intertwined with the lake over centuries. Whether one believes in ghosts or sees them as echoes of history, the experience of Lake Minnewanka is unforgettably haunting landscape where the spirits of the past linger, watching, whispering, and waiting beneath the water's surface. Oak Hammock Marsh, located just north of Winnipeg in Manitoba, is renowned as a sanctuary for wildlife, where countless species of birds gather and the waters teem with life. Its vast wetlands, boardwalks, and observation towers offer visitors a peaceful escape into nature. A place where one might expect only the gentle calls of waterfowl and the rustle of reeds. Yet beneath this serene surface, the marsh carries stories far darker than the ordinary. For decades, locals and visitors alike have reported unsettling occurrences that hint at a world beyond the natural, where the mists conceal more than just water and wildlife. Those who venture into Oak Marsh at dawn often describe a surreal, almost otherworldly atmosphere. The rising sun casts a soft glow over the water, but the mist curling above the surface can obscure much more than the distant shoreline. It is in this veil of fog that many claim to have encountered ghostly figures, emerging silently from the marsh itself. Witnesses describe vague silhouettes, sometimes appearing humanoid, sometimes moving with a fluidity that seems unnatural, as if the air and water themselves were shaping them. These figures often vanish the moment one focuses on them, leaving behind only the sense of having been watched or followed. The boardwalks that wind through the marsh. Normally a safe path for birdwatchers and hikers. Some visitors report hearing the unmistakable sound of footsteps pacing alongside them, even when no one else is present. The boards creak as though someone were walking heavily, yet when the observer looks around, the path is empty. A few have felt sudden cold drafts or icy touches on their skin, fleeting yet unnerving, as if phantom hands were brushing against them from nowhere. Dawn seems to be a particularly active time for paranormal activity in the marsh. As the fog rises from the waters, some claim to see figures gliding above the surface, their forms partially translucent and bathed in the early light. Others have described seeing shapes that seem to float on the water itself, moving against the current or vanishing into reeds without a trace. In a few accounts, these apparitions appear to be reaching out, as though attempting to communicate or warn, before dissolving back into the mist. The combination of light, fog, and still water creates an environment where the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs, leaving those who witness these phenomena questioning what is real. Locals have long whispered about the marsh's past, tales that may explain why it feels charged with such energy. Long before the establishment of Oak Marsh as a protected area, the wetlands were a place of travel and settlement for indigenous peoples who understood the land as alive with spirits and forces beyond human perception. Stories passed down through generations speak of water, spirits, and guardians of the wetlands, beings who watch over the land and its creatures. Some suggest that the strange encounters reported by modern visitors are echoes of these ancient beliefs. Spirits still present, ensuring the marsh remains respected and undisturbed. Even experienced birdwatchers, accustomed to quiet observation and patience, have reported encounters that defy explanation. A sudden movement in the reeds, a shadow passing across the boardwalk, or the inexplicable sound of someone breathing nearby can turn a tranquil morning into an experience of unease. In several accounts, observers have turned to see a lone figure standing on the edge of the water, only for it to vanish when approached. Others have noted reflections in the water that do not match their own movements, hints of a presence lurking just out of reach. Oak Marsh's haunting extends beyond physical apparitions. Many report a pervasive feeling of being watched, a sense that the marsh itself is aware of every step taken within it. Even on the quietest days, when the only sounds are bird calls and the rustle of reeds, visitors often describe a lingering tension, a sensation that something unseen is observing from the mist. This awareness is subtle yet unnerving, a psychological echo that seems to mirror the stories of ghostly footsteps and apparitions. Some have captured glimpses of these phenomena in photographs or on video, revealing shapes or shadows that cannot be attributed to wildlife or natural movement. The images often show dark forms rising from the mist, barely discernible yet undeniably present. These pieces of evidence, though fragmentary, reinforce the accounts of those who have felt the marsh's chilling presence firsthand. Whether these manifestations are the spirits of the past, guardians of the wetlands, or something else entirely, remains a matter of speculation. But the experiences are remarkably consistent across decades of reports. Ultimately, Oak Marsh is a place of contrasts, serene and alive, yet imbued with mystery and unease. Its waters and fog conceal stories of spirits and unseen watchers, blending indigenous legends with modern encounters into a tapestry that fascinates and frightens. Hikers, birdwatchers, and casual visitors alike leave with a heightened awareness of the land around them, sensing the whispers of history, the touch of something unseen, and the presence of beings that may never fully reveal themselves. In this seemingly tranquil corner of Manitoba, nature and the supernatural coexist, reminding all who enter that some landscapes are alive with more than just life. They are alive with stories, spirits, and secrets waiting to be discovered. Peggy's Cove, perched on the rugged coastline of Nova Scotia, is famous worldwide for its picturesque lighthouse and sweeping ocean views. Visitors flock to its granite boulders, snapping photographs of the iconic scene where the land meets the Atlantic's relentless waves. Yet, beneath the beauty and charm of this seaside village lies a haunting story, whispered among locals and sailors alike, tale of love, loss, and a spirit that refuses to rest. According to legend, Peggy's Cove is haunted by the ghost of a young woman, often described wearing a flowing blue dress, wandering the rocks near the lighthouse. Her story is one of tragedy. Long ago, she fell deeply in love with a fisherman, a man whose life was claimed by the very waters that now lap against the cove's jagged shoreline. Some say he was lost during a violent storm, swept away by waves that showed no mercy. The woman, unable to bear the grief, wandered the cliffs and eventually vanished. Though her spirit is said to linger, bound to the rocks and the crashing surf, mourning her lost love for eternity. Visitors who brave the granite outcroppings near the lighthouse often report unsettling experiences. On foggy mornings or stormy evenings, some claim to see a figure in blue moving silently across the rocks, pausing as if gazing out over the turbulent water. She appears ethereal, almost translucent, with hair and dress flowing in a wind that seems to follow her alone. Those who approach often find that she vanishes, leaving only the echo of footsteps or the distant crash of waves. Fishermen, long accustomed to the moods of the Atlantic, swear that during particularly fierce storms, they can hear her cries carried above the roar of the ocean, a haunting lament that chills the heart. The spirit of Peggy's Cove is not merely a passive apparition. Some visitors report feeling sudden drops in temperature when walking near the rocks where she is said to appear. Others speak of an almost palpable sadness in the air, a heaviness that weighs down their steps and presses against their chest. There are even tales of objects moving slightly, a hat blown off a picnic bench, a scarf caught in the wind, only to be found draped neatly on a nearby rock, gestures that some interpret as the ghost interacting with the living world. Locals maintain that the cove itself is alive with the memory of tragedy. Fishermen and tour guides recount stories passed down through generations. Lovers lost at sea, children swept away by sudden tides, and sailors who never returned to harbor. Peggy's spirit, they say, is one of many who linger where the Atlantic meets land. But she is the most visible, the most persistent, because of her enduring grief. Her presence serves as both a warning and a memorial, a reminder of the dangers of the sea and the depth of human sorrow. The lighthouse, a beacon for sailors and a symbol of safety, is intertwined with these tales. At night, when the light sweeps across the cove, some have reported seeing her figure reflected in the glass or standing just beyond the beam, staring out to sea. Others describe hearing whispers near the lighthouse keeper's quarters, though no one has been there. On particularly foggy nights, the light appears to struggle, casting strange shadows across the rocks that many claim resemble a solitary figure walking in grief. In photos taken near the water's edge, some report faint shapes or wisps of blue in areas where no one was standing. On video, shadows sometimes move against the direction of wind and current, as if guided by a force unseen. These glimpses, though fleeting, reinforce the stories told by locals and fishermen, creating a chilling sense that the spirit is both present and watchful, bound to the rocky coast by sorrow and memory. Despite, or perhaps because of its haunting reputation, Peggy's Cove remains a destination for those seeking both natural beauty and the thrill of the supernatural. Hikers, photographers, and curious travelers often report a strange duality upon visiting, awe at the stunning scenery, and an underlying unease, as if the land itself holds secrets that will never be fully revealed. At dawn, when the sun rises over the Atlantic, the fog lifting and waves glittering in the light, it is easy to forget the stories, but as the mist rolls back in, the tales resurface, and the sense of being watched returns. Some locals say that, if you listen closely on quiet evenings, you can hear her voice carried by the wind. Soft sobs, or a whispered name, reaching across the water to those who are sensitive to the unseen. Others suggest that her mourning is eternal, a cycle repeated night after night. For as long as the Atlantic continues to crash against the rocks, to encounter her is not necessarily dangerous, but it is deeply affecting, an experience that leaves a lasting impression, blending sorrow, mystery, and the raw power of the sea. In the end, Peggy's Cove is more than just a lighthouse and rocky shoreline. It is a landscape imbued with memory and emotion, where the boundary between the living and the dead is tenuous. The ghost in the blue dress serves as a reminder that tragedy leaves marks not only on the land but on the spirits tied to it. For those who visit, the cove offers both breathtaking beauty and a haunting sense of history, where the cries of a lost love echo above the waves, and the figure in blue walks the rocks forever, mourning and remembered. Algonquin Provincial Park, located in the heart of Ontario, is renowned for its vast forests, pristine lakes, and winding trails that stretch as far as the eye can see. Established in 1893, it is one of Canada's oldest and most beloved parks, attracting campers, hikers, and nature enthusiasts year-round. Its beauty is undeniable, the sunlight glinting off the water, the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind, and the call of loons echoing across quiet lakes. Yet beneath this serene exterior, Algonquin is also a place steeped in mystery and ghostly tales, where the natural and supernatural seem to intertwine. Visitors to the park often speak of an unusual stillness, a silence that feels heavier than normal. While it is common to hear birds or the occasional splash of a fish, there are moments when the woods become unnaturally quiet, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. It is in these moments that the strange occurrences begin. Campers and hikers have reported seeing phantom canoes gliding silently across the park's lakes, moving as though guided by invisible hands. Some describe mist rising from the water, obscuring the shoreline, and in that foggy distance, the outline of a canoe appears empty, yet undeniably present. Those who approach report that it vanishes before their eyes, leaving ripples in the water but no trace of a paddler. The eerie phenomena are not limited to the lakes. Deep in the woods, travelers have heard ghostly drumming, a rhythmic sound that seems to come from nowhere. The beats are faint at first, almost blending with the natural sounds of the forest, but grow louder and more deliberate as one ventures closer. Many claim the drumming is accompanied by fleeting shadows between the trees, figures glimpsed at the edge of vision, vanishing when directly observed. Some say these are the echoes of indigenous rituals long forgotten, spiritual remnants of the land's original inhabitants, still reverberating through the forest centuries later. Others believe it is something older, a presence tied to the land itself, watching and responding to the movements of those who enter its domain. Algonquin's trails and campsites have their own ghostly stories. Campers report hearing whispered voices when no one else is nearby, murmurs that seem to carry across the forest, beckoning or warning. Some describe footsteps on the dirt paths that do not match their own, or the faint sound of voices conversing in a language they cannot understand. At times, these sounds appear to come from multiple directions at once, impossible to trace to a single source. Hikers have recounted turning corners only to find the trail empty, with the quiet returning as if the noises had never existed at all. Many encounters involve a sense of being watched. Visitors often describe a prickling feeling at the back of the neck, a sense that someone or something is observing them from the shadows. The sensation intensifies in areas where the trees grow thickest, or near lakes where the fog rolls in across the water. Some have claimed to see glowing eyes peering through the undergrowth, only to find nothing when they look closer. Others report seeing fleeting figures darting between trees, their forms blurred and indistinct, leaving no footprints or traces behind. Algonquin's lakes also harbor mysterious histories. The park's vast network of waterways was once a route for voyageurs and indigenous peoples, and over the centuries, countless accidents and drownings occurred. Some believe that the spirits of those who perished in these waters linger, appearing as spectral canoes or shadows on the lakes at dusk. Canoeists have reported sudden, inexplicable currents or waves, and the sensation that someone or something shares their vessel, though they are alone. These eerie experiences often coincide with thick fogs or the fading light of evening, when the park takes on an ethereal, almost unreal quality. Wildlife, too, seems to act strangely in areas reputed to be haunted. Animals are often unusually silent, and birds that typically call loudly may suddenly vanish from the treetops. Some hikers report sensing a tension in the air, a charged energy that seems to permeate the forest. It is as if the land itself remembers, holding the echoes of the past in its trees, water, and soil. Even experienced campers, familiar with the rhythms of the wilderness, describe a sense of unease that cannot be explained by natural causes alone. Photographers have occasionally captured strange anomalies in their images. Orbs of light hovering over the water, shadowy figures in the distance, or reflections that do not match any visible object. While skeptics may attribute these to fog, mist, or optical illusions, the consistency of reports from countless visitors over decades makes it difficult to dismiss. From phantom canoes drifting silently across lakes to drumming that seems to come from nowhere, Algonquin Provincial Park is a place where the natural world and the supernatural converge. For those who enter the park, the experience is both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Hikers, campers, and nature lovers leave with memories of breathtaking scenery, but also a lingering sense that Algonquin is alive with more than flora and fauna. There is a consciousness in the forest, a presence in the mist, and spirits in the waters that remind visitors of the park's long history and the mysteries it keeps hidden. Algonquin Provincial Park, with its endless forests, misty lakes, and winding trails, offers both a sanctuary for nature enthusiasts and a haunting ground for those attuned to the otherworldly. Its lakes conceal ghostly canoes, its woods echo with mysterious drumming, and its trails whisper of things unseen. In this park, beauty and fear coexist, creating a landscape where the living and the spirits of the past share the same space, forever intertwined. In the far reaches of Arctic Canada, where the frozen seas stretch endlessly and the sun disappears for months at a time, lies the Northwest Passage. This legendary sea route, long sought by explorers as a shortcut between Europe and Asia, is more than just a stretch of icy water. It is a graveyard of ships, a frozen tomb for sailors who never made it home, and a place where whispers of the past drift across the ice like the howling wind. It is here, among the towering ice floes and desolate horizons, that stories of restless spirits linger, haunting the very waters that once promised fortune and glory. The most infamous chapter of the Northwest Passage belongs to the doomed Franklin expedition of the 1840s. Sir John Franklin set sail with two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terra. In 1845, the mission was to chart the unclaimed stretches of the passage, to complete the final piece of a dream that had eluded explorers for centuries. The ships were fitted with the most advanced technology of their time, stocked with years' worth of provisions, and manned by 129 experienced officers and crew. Yet, despite all the preparation, they sailed into oblivion. For years, the fate of the Franklin expedition was a mystery. Rescue missions sent into the Arctic found little more than abandoned camps, skeletal remains, and scattered relics half buried in snow. Reports from Inuit hunters spoke of ghostly ships trapped in ice, their masts splintering as the pressure crushed them, and of starving men staggering through the tundra, their faces gaunt and eyes hollow. Some spoke of strange, pale figures wandering the ice, not quite alive but not at rest either, trailing behind sleds as if they could not let go of their earthly mission. The discovery of the wrecks in modern times, Erebus in 2014 and Terror in 2016 has not silenced the whispers. If anything, it has deepened them. Divers who explored the remains described an eerie stillness, as though the ships themselves resisted being disturbed. Some claimed they felt a presence watching them in the murky waters, a heavy cold pressing against them even through their suits. There were tales of muffled knocks echoing through the wreck, as if unseen hands were still at work inside the iron walls. But the Franklin expedition is not the only ghost story tied to the Northwest Passage. For generations, Inuit hunters have spoken of shadowy forms that followed them across the ice. These figures do not move like living men, they glide, silent and unyielding, leaving no trace in the snow. Hunters who turn back to confront them often find nothing, yet they feel the weight of unseen eyes. Some say these spirits are the lost sailors of Franklin's crew, doomed to wander forever, searching for a home they would never see again. There are darker stories still. Some Inuit elders recall tales passed down of strange men who stumbled from the ice long after the ships were lost. Starving, delirious, they begged for food but carried an aura of dread with them. According to legend, these men were not entirely human anymore. The spirits of the land had claimed them, twisting their desperation into something uncanny. Their shadows stretched too long in the pale Arctic light, and their voices carried an unnatural echo, as though more than one soul spoke through them. Even today, travelers through the Northwest Passage tell of unsettling experiences. Sailors on modern vessels navigating the route describe hearing phantom voices carried on the wind snatches of song in languages long forgotten, or the faint call of men working on rigging that no longer exists. Some crews have reported seeing ghostly lights flickering on the ice, as though lanterns still burned in camps that vanished over a century ago. On moonless nights, there are those who swear they hear the crunch of footsteps pacing the snow near their camps, though no tracks are ever found in the morning. The endless expanse of white blurs the line between reality and illusion, and the silence is so profound it magnifies every sound. A cracking sheet of ice can sound like a distant cannon, while the shifting winds mimic human cries. But those who have spent long nights in the passage insist that not all of it can be explained by tricks of nature. The sorrow of those who perished here runs deep, seeping into the land, the sea, and the air itself. To many, the Northwest Passage is a reminder of ambition's cost. The dream of a faster trade route drove countless men into one of the harshest environments on Earth, and the Arctic took its toll. It is said that the land remembers every step, every desperate breath, every final scream swallowed by the wind. The spirits of those who fell here have become part of the ice, their presence lingering like frostbite on the skin of those who dare to follow. In the end, the Northwest Passage remains both a triumph and a tragedy. Ships now pass through where others perished, carving paths across the frozen seas with steel and technology their predecessors could never have imagined. Yet the ghosts remain. They wander the drifting ice, they call out from beneath the frozen waves, and they stand as silent shadows on the horizon, watching. To cross the Northwest Passage is not merely to navigate a route, it is to walk with the dead, to share the company of men who dreamed too greatly and lost everything to the unforgiving Arctic. The French River in Ontario winds like a dark ribbon through thick forests and granite cliffs, its waters carrying centuries of stories. Once an artery of the fur trade, it bore the canoes of voyageurs, indigenous traders, and missionaries who braved its shifting currents. Today, it is a place of quiet beauty, where pine-scented breezes stir the air and the sky reflects off the rippling surface. Yet, beneath this natural calm, the river holds an atmosphere that unsettles even seasoned travelers. Its history lingers, and many claim the spirits of those who once paddled its waters have never left. Canoeists venturing into the French River often describe an eerie sensation of being followed. The sound is unmistakable: paddles, dipping in rhythm, striking the water with a hollow splash, as if another canoe glides just out of sight. When they turn to look, the river lies empty, the surface unbroken but for their own wake. Some shrug it off as echoes bouncing off the cliffs. Yet others insist the cadence is too steady, too human, to be a trick of sound. These ghostly paddlers are said to be the voyageurs who once moved through these channels in endless processions, their sweat and song bound to the current forever. At night, the atmosphere grows heavier. Around campfires, travelers speak of strange lantern lights appearing along the shoreline. They bob and sway as if held by unseen hands, glowing briefly in the dark before vanishing without explanation. Sometimes they seem to flicker in the tree line, as though someone is walking with a lantern just beyond the reach of vision. Some believe these are the spirits of fur traders searching for campsites, forever retracing their old roots. Others suggest the lights are the restless souls of those who never made it home, lost to accidents or violent encounters along the riverbanks. The French River was not only a trade route, it was a witness to conflict, hardship, and death. Rapids claimed lives when canoes capsized under heavy loads. Storms would sweep across the water, leaving no time for escape. In the harsh winters, starvation and exposure often claimed the unlucky. The ghosts said to haunt the river may be echoes of this suffering. Locals tell of hearing low voices drifting through the trees, fragments of French songs carried on the wind, or the distant call of names long forgotten. These whispers seem to come from nowhere, stopping as suddenly as they begin, leaving the listener chilled to the bone. One tale speaks of a group of campers who set up on a rocky outcrop by the river. After nightfall, they noticed faint music rising from the water, billow fiddles and voices, blending together in what sounded like a voyageur's tune. The sound grew stronger, as though a flotilla of canoes was passing by, but the water reflected nothing except moonlight. And when one of the campers shouted out a greeting, the music abruptly stopped, leaving only the echo of his own voice in the stillness. None of them slept well that night, feeling eyes upon them from the darkness of the woods. Even experienced guides have their own unsettling stories. Some speak of phantom figures glimpsed at dawn, standing along the riverbanks in period clothing. They are there for only a moment, their forms hazy as if made of mist, before they dissolve back into the morning fog. Others describe shapes moving silently across the water, a canoe gliding without a ripple, leaving no trace behind. These apparitions vanish as quickly as they appear, leaving behind the creeping suspicion that the river remembers everything that has passed along its length. In indigenous traditions, the French River holds deep significance. It was a vital travel route and a place of spiritual resonance. Elders speak of the river as alive, a being with memory and presence. The stories of phantom paddles and ghostly lights are seen, not only as hauntings, but as reminders that the spirits of the past remain connected to the land and water. Travelers who feel watched or followed may, in these traditions, be sensing the guardians of the river spirits who ensure respect is shown to the waterway and its history. One chilling account tells of a lone paddler who set out at dusk. He later recalled hearing the sound of another canoe behind him, the paddles cutting cleanly through the water. He called out, expecting to see another traveler, but the sound continued with no one in sight. Uneasy, he paddled harder, but the phantom strokes quickened to match his pace. Finally, he pulled ashore, shaking with fear, and spent the night on land. As he sat by his fire, he swore he saw a dim light moving up the river, pausing as if watching him before winking out. He never traveled the French River alone again. The river's power lies not only in its physical beauty, but in its ability to stir the imagination. Mist rising off the surface can twist into human shapes. The steady beat of water against the rocks can sound like drums or voices. In the isolation of its channels, where civilization feels far away, the mind becomes attuned to the uncanny. Whether these phenomena are the work of spirits or the tricks of a restless environment, the French River leaves a lasting impression on all who travel it. To this day, canoeists who venture onto its waters at dusk describe the same uneasy feeling that they are never truly alone. The river flows as it has for centuries, carrying with it the memory of countless journeys, and perhaps, in the rhythm of phantom paddles and the glimmer of vanishing lanterns, it is reminding us that its story is still unfolding, woven with both the living and the dead. Nestled within the Canadian Rockies, Kootenay National Park in British Columbia is a breathtaking expanse of wilderness where snow-capped peaks rise above deep valleys. and turquoise rivers cut their way through jagged stones. It is a place of wild beauty, a landscape that humbles anyone who walks its trails. But alongside its natural majesty, there lingers an uneasy sense that the forest, the mountains, and the very earth itself hold secrets that are not meant for human eyes. Campers and hikers who journey here often leave with more than photographs. They leave with stories that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. For generations, indigenous peoples have spoken of the spirits that inhabit these lands. The park, carved by glaciers and filled with ancient cedar groves, is said to be a place where the natural and spiritual worlds overlap. While many come seeking peace in its quiet valleys, others whisper of encounters that suggest something darker moves within the shadows of the forest. One of the most unsettling legends surrounds the strange fires that appear in the wilderness. Campers have reported waking in the dead of night to see an eerie glow deep in the trees, flickering like a campfire. Drawn by curiosity, some have set out to investigate, only to find nothing when they arrive. No flames, no ashes, not even a wisp of smoke. The forest is silent, as though holding its breath. More chilling are the accounts of hikers who claim to have watched these lights from a distance, swaying and crackling like real fire, only to watch them vanish in an instant, as if swallowed by the earth. Some insist these are not ordinary flames, but ghostly beacons, tied to tragedies lost to time hunters, travelers, and wanderers who met their end in the rugged wilderness and whose spirits now kindle phantom fires to mark their eternal presence. The Marble Canyon area, with its narrow gorge carved by centuries of rushing water, is another hotspot of spectral activity. By day, its limestone walls gleam in the sunlight, and its turquoise river roars with glacial force. But when the sun dips below the mountains and shadows stretch across the canyon, the atmosphere shifts. Many hikers have spoken of footsteps echoing along the trails, measured, deliberate, and always a few paces behind. Yet when they turn, the path is empty, save for the rustle of wind in the pines. The sound often continues, following them until they leave the canyon. Some describe it as though an unseen presence is shadowing their every move, unwilling to reveal itself, yet never letting them walk alone. The footsteps are not always alone. On moonlit nights, some travelers claim they have seen tall, shadowy figures slipping silently between the trees. These beings are described as darker than the surrounding night, their forms indistinct but unmistakably human in shape. Witnesses say they move with unnatural speed, vanishing into the forest the moment they are spotted. Skeptics dismiss these sightings as tricks of the light, the mind playing games in the wilderness. But those who have felt the weight of their presence describe an overwhelming sense of dread as though they had been intruders in a place that did not want them there. Campers tell of nights where the forest around them falls into an unnatural stillness. The calls of owls cease, the wind fades, and the crackle of the fire feels muffled. In that silence, some hear faint whispers carried on the air, words in no language they can recognize, drifting like echoes of another time. The whispers are often accompanied by a chill, as though the night air itself grows heavier, pressing against the skin. Those who have heard them leave convinced that the wilderness is alive with the voices of those long gone, their restless energy lingering among the peaks and valleys. Not all encounters in Kootenay are subtle. Some visitors have spoken of waking in the middle of the night to the sensation of being watched. One camper described opening their eyes to see a dark form crouched just beyond the edge of their firelight, unmoving, its gaze fixed on their tent. When they scrambled for a flashlight, the beam illuminated nothing. The forest was empty, though the feeling of being observed did not fade. Others have seen glowing eyes peering from the trees, only to disappear when approached. These encounters often leave visitors rattled, with some abandoning their campsites before dawn. The park's history only deepens its aura of mystery. Harsh winters and unforgiving terrain have claimed countless lives, explorers, fur traders, and pioneers who underestimated the Rockies' brutal beauty. Some believe these restless souls remain tied to the land, manifesting in the strange fires, phantom footsteps, and shadowy beings that plague travelers. Indigenous traditions also speak of spirits that guard the mountains, beings who reveal themselves only to remind humans of the land's power. Even the rivers seem touched by the supernatural. Anglers have told of casting lines only to see ripples disturb the water, as if something large moved just below the surface. Canoeists report hearing paddles striking water in the still night, the sound of an unseen vessel gliding alongside them before vanishing without a trace. The wilderness does not easily reveal its secrets, but it makes its presence known to those willing or unlucky enough to listen. Kootenay National Park remains a place of wonder and beauty, but also one of unease. Beneath the grandeur of its peaks and the calm of its valleys lies an ancient presence, an unseen world that brushes against the living. For those who visit, the experience is unforgettable, only for the stunning vistas and rugged trails, but for the lingering chill that clings to them long after they've left, a reminder that the wilderness is never truly empty. It is a place where the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs, where fires burn without fuel, footsteps echo without body, and shadowy beings wait just beyond the light. Cape Breton Highlands in Nova Scotia is a place where rugged beauty meets ancient legend. Towering cliffs plunge into the Atlantic, while dense forests weave across the land, cloaking the highlands in mystery. The Cabot Trail, one of Canada's most famous scenic drives, winds through this wilderness, offering breathtaking views of the sea and mountains. But beneath the natural splendor lies a darker layer of folklore tales of phantom dogs, whose presence is said to herald doom. These ghostly hounds, with glowing eyes and chilling howls, are whispered about in hushed tones, a legend that has clung to the highlands for generations. Travelers who journey through the highlands often describe an uncanny silence that descends after nightfall. The forest, usually alive with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves, grows oppressively still. It is in these moments that people claim to hear the distant baying of dogs, even when no living animal is near. The howls echo through the valleys, carried by the wind, and seem to circle travelers, pressing closer and closer. Unlike the calls of ordinary dogs, these cries are said to cut through bone, filling listeners with a deep unease that cannot be shaken. Stories tell of lone travelers along the Cabot Trail, making their way through fog-drenched roads, who suddenly catch sight of a dark shape keeping pace with their vehicle. At first, it appears as a shadow, darting just beyond the reach of headlights. But when the mist thins, the outline of a massive hound emerges. Witnesses describe glowing eyes, sometimes red, sometimes a pale, ghostly white, staring back with unnatural intensity. The dogs vanish as suddenly as they appear, often just before an accident or an unexpected tragedy strikes. Local fishermen, too, recount strange encounters along the rocky shores. On stormy nights, when waves crash violently against the cliffs, some swear they have heard snarls blending with the wind. A few claim to have seen enormous dogs pacing the rocks, their dark shapes illuminated by lightning. These apparitions never leave tracks on the wet ground, and their forms sometimes fade into the mist like smoke. To the superstitious, such sightings are not merely frightening, they are a warning of death at sea. Historians and folklorists have traced the roots of the phantom dog legend back to the Celtic and Gaelic traditions. Carried by early settlers of Cape Breton in Scotland, tales of the Tool, a spectral hound of the Highlands, were well known. Said to be an omen of death, the Tool appeared to those fated to die soon. It is believed that these legends crossed the ocean with settlers and merged with the wild, mysterious landscape of Nova Scotia, giving rise to the stories told in Cape Breton Highlands today. Campers in the park have added their own experiences to the lore. Many describe hearing footsteps circling their tents at night, followed by guttural growls that send shivers through the dark. Yet when they shine flashlights outside, no creature is there. Others tell of waking to see the faint silhouette of a dog standing at the edge of the firelight, motionless, watching before fading into the night. These encounters leave a lingering dread, as if something unseen is following them long after they leave the park. What makes the phantom dogs especially terrifying is not just their appearance, but the sense of doom that accompanies them. Witnesses consistently describe feeling overwhelming despair, an instinctive knowledge that something terrible is about to happen. In some cases, accidents, illnesses, or deaths have followed soon after the sightings. This connection has cemented the dogs' reputation as harbingers of tragedy. Skeptics argue that the stories are nothing more than campfire tales, fueled by fear, isolation, and the eerie atmosphere of the highlands. The cries heard in the night could be coyotes or the wind twisting through the cliffs. Shadows in the fog may trick the eyes into creating phantom beasts. Yet even the most rational explanations cannot erase the unease people feel after hearing the chilling howls or seeing the glowing eyes in the dark. For locals, the phantom dogs remain an enduring part of Cape Breton's identity. Whether regarded as myth, superstition, or supernatural truth, their legend is deeply entwined with the highlands. To walk these trails or drive these roads at night is to step into a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels thin, where the echoes of old-world folklore still linger. Visitors today continue to share new encounters. Some dismiss them as imagination, while others leave the highlands forever changed, carrying with them the memory of spectral hounds whose cries echo long after they fade into the night. In the end, the phantom dogs of Cape Breton Highlands serve as more than just a frightening story. They are reminders of mortality, shadows that stalk the edges of life itself, warning that death is never far behind. Lake Superior, the largest of the Great Lakes, is a place of vast beauty and chilling mystery. Its waters stretch farther than the eye can see, resembling an inland sea more than a lake. The surface can shift in moments from glassy calm to violent waves that tower like walls, and beneath that surface lies a graveyard of history. More than 350 shipwrecks rest on its bottom, silent reminders of just how unforgiving this lake can be. Sailors have long feared its sudden storms and its icy depths, but the legends that swirl around Lake Superior go beyond tragedy. They suggest that the souls of those who perished here never truly left, haunting the waves and wandering the shoreline with a mournful presence. Among the most enduring tales are those of ghost ships. Fishermen and sailors alike have claimed to see vessels drifting across the horizon. Sails full, rigging taut, but eerily silent. These phantom ships often appear in the distance during storms or on foggy nights, glowing faintly in the mist before vanishing into nothingness. One of the most famous sightings is that of a schooner said to rise from the depths during fierce tempests, its crew visible on deck, their faces pale and their eyes hollow. Witnesses describe how it sails straight into the wind, defying natural law, before dissolving into the darkness as if it were never there. These visions are not the only unsettling reports tied to Lake Superior. Along the shoreline, hikers and campers sometimes claim to hear voices carried on the wind, desperate cries for help, faint shouts, or the guttural groans of drowning men. Some believe these are echoes of sailors lost to the lake's unpredictable waters, their last moments imprinted on the air itself. The haunting cries often come during storms, when the wind howls through the pines and the waves batter the rocks with a relentless rhythm. For those who have heard them, the sounds are unforgettable, carrying both sorrow and dread. The most infamous tragedy tied to Lake Superior is the wreck of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. On November 10, 1975, this massive freighter sank during a brutal storm, taking all 29 crew members with it. The ship went down without sending a distress signal, and to this day, mystery lingers over its final moments. The wreck was later discovered on the lakebed, broken in two, but no bodies were ever recovered. In the years since, sailors and travelers have reported strange encounters tied to the Fitzgerald. Some claim to see the shape of a freighter cutting across Superior's dark waters at night, appearing solid for a moment before fading into mist. Others have heard phantom radio calls, garbled voices calling for assistance, only for the signal to vanish. The tragedy of the Fitzgerald seems etched into the soul of the lake, and many believe the spirits of her crew remain adrift, forever bound to the waters that claimed them. But the legends of Lake Superior extend beyond ships and sailors. Indigenous stories speak of spirits inhabiting the lake long before European explorers arrived. Some Ojibwe traditions tell of water beings powerful spirits who dwell in the depths, capable of both protecting and punishing those who cross their domain. These beings are said to cause storms when angered and to drag the careless down into the darkness. To this day, some who fish or paddle along the more remote stretches of the lake speak of feeling watched, as though unseen eyes followed them from beneath the waves. On still nights, when the moonlight paints the water silver, some claim to see shadows moving just below the surface, too large and deliberate to be mere fish. Travelers along Lake Superior's North Shore, particularly in Ontario, often describe eerie experiences that seem to defy explanation. Campers have woken in the night to the sound of footsteps circling their tents, though no prints are found in the morning. Others have seen lantern lights bobbing along the shoreline trails, moving as though carried by unseen hands, only to wink out when approached. These ghostly illuminations are believed by some to be the spirits of voyageurs, fur traders, and paddlers from centuries past, who lost their lives navigating the treacherous waters of the Great Lakes. Perhaps the most unnerving tales are those of sudden cold spots, where the temperature drops sharply even in the height of summer. Canoeists describe feeling a chill spread across the water, so sharp it numbs the skin, often accompanied by a deep unease. Some connect these occurrences to the presence of restless souls lingering where they perished. Fishermen say that if you feel such a chill, it means a spirit has brushed past you, still wandering in search of a way home. What makes Lake Superior so haunting is the way it combines natural majesty with the weight of human loss. Its size alone can inspire awe, but it is the silence after a storm, the vast emptiness stretching to the horizon, and the knowledge of all who lie beneath its waves that gives it its ghostly reputation. For every shipwreck discovered, dozens more remain hidden in the depths, their stories lost but not forgotten. The lake itself seems to hold memory, replaying moments of tragedy in whispers, lights, and phantom shapes that refuse to fade. To this day, sailors approach Superior with respect, knowing how quickly its mood can shift. Travelers who linger along its shores after dark often describe a sense of presence, as though the line between the living and the dead is thinner here than anywhere else. Whether it is the vision of a ghost ship, the cry of a lost crewman carried on the wind, or the unshakable feeling of being watched from the waves, Lake Superior remains more than a body of water. It is a place where history lingers, where grief echoes, and where the restless dead still seem to rise with the storms. The Yukon River winds like a silver serpent through some of the wildest and most rugged landscapes of Canada, stretching more than 2,000 miles. It has always been a lifeline of travel, survival, and legend. For thousands of years, it has been central to indigenous cultures, a place where the water carries stories as surely as it carries fish and ice. In the late 19th century, however, the river took on another layer of meaning when gold fever swept across the Yukon. Men by the thousands came to its shores, carving trails through snow and paddling makeshift boats down its icy waters, desperate to strike it rich. Many never returned, and if the stories are true, some of those restless souls never left. Travelers along the Yukon River today speak of strange sights that seem pulled from another century. On clear nights, when the moon shines on the river's dark surface, glowing lanterns have been spotted moving along the banks, swaying gently as though carried by unseen hands. Those who have paddled the river in solitude tell of hearing the unmistakable creak of wagon wheels or the soft thud of boots trudging along the shoreline, though no other travelers are in sight. These sounds often vanish the moment they are acknowledged, leaving only the silence of the wilderness. One of the most chilling tales involves the phantom prospectors said to haunt the river's edge. Dressed in ragged clothing from the 1890s, they appear as wary figures, hunched over their packs, lanterns glowing dimly in the night. Witnesses describe them as endlessly searching, scanning the ground, peering into the brush, or staring into the water as though expecting to see glittering gold. Campers who have seen them report a heavy feeling of sorrow in their presence, as if these spirits are forever bound to the hunger and despair of the Klondike Gold Rush. Some believe these ghosts are men who perished in the freezing cold, victims of starvation, accidents, or sheer exhaustion, doomed to replay their futile search for treasure long after death. Perhaps even more unnerving are the reports of phantom boats that glide silently down the Yukon's currents. Canoeists and rafters have described moments when they hear the splash of oars or the wooden groan of a vessel moving with the water, only to see nothing when they turn to look. In rare cases, travelers claim to have glimpsed entire ghostly flotillas boats filled with silent figures drifting side by side, their outlines shimmering faintly before fading back into the mist. Such sightings are often said to occur near old gold rush settlements, places where desperate men built rafts and boats that would never survive the treacherous river's rapids. Local lore holds that these spectral boats are the remnants of ill-fated expeditions that never made it to Dawson City, the heart of the Klondike goldfields. Many prospectors, eager to stake their claims, built crude vessels from green timber or scavenged logs. As they pushed into the rushing water, some capsized and vanished beneath the surface, their crews swallowed by the cold depths, trapped on the river that betrayed them, endlessly repeating their final journey. Inuit and First Nations stories add another dimension to the river's haunting reputation. Some elders speak of shadowy figures that trail behind sleds in the dead of winter, their presence felt more than seen. Hunters traveling alone have reported a strange heaviness in the air, as though something unseen walks in step with them, watching silently from just beyond the edge of vision. To encounter these beings is considered an omen, a warning that danger lies ahead, or that one's spirit must tread carefully in such a powerful landscape. The Yukon River, after all, is not merely a body of water, it's a living force, ancient and aware. And those who disrespect it may find themselves lost in its embrace forever. There are also tales of ghostly voices carried on the wind across the frozen river. Prospectors who camped near its banks during the gold rush often wrote of being kept awake by murmurs in the darkness. Some described hearing men singing, the faint strains of drinking songs rising from somewhere across the water, only to fade when investigated. Others swore they heard desperate cries for help, echoing as though from men drowning in the current, though no one could ever be found. Even today, modern travelers have shared accounts of hearing these ghostly calls when the river runs high in the spring, the ice cracking and shifting like a chorus of restless souls. Whether born of superstition or something beyond explanation, the legends of the Yukon River persist because they mirror the truth of its history. The gold rush was not only a time of adventure, but of tremendous suffering. Thousands of men and women gambled everything for a chance at fortune, and countless lives were claimed by the cold, the rapids, or sheer despair. It is not hard to believe that their restless spirits might linger, bound to the very river that carried them toward both hope and ruin. Today, the Yukon River still flows with the same relentless power it always has. Canoeists paddle its length in summer, while dog sled teams follow its frozen surface in winter. But for those who listen closely, the past is never far away. The flicker of a lantern in the trees, the echo of a boat unseen, or the distant cry on the wind may remind travelers that the Yukon is more than a river. It is a keeper of souls, carrying the weight of history in its waters. And perhaps, just perhaps, those who search its banks in silence are not alone. Jasper National Park in Alberta is one of the most breathtaking landscapes in Canada, a place where towering peaks rise over glacier-fed lakes, and endless forests stretch beyond the horizon. It is a wilderness that feels both timeless and immense, as if nature itself watches with silent eyes. Jasper has another reputation, one that whispers through campfire tales and unsettles those who linger too long after nightfall. Near Malign Lake, in particular, stories of spectral figures and phantom footsteps have made this pristine wilderness feel more like a haunted realm than a sanctuary of peace. Malign Lake, famous for its turquoise waters and the iconic Spirit Island, draws countless visitors each year. The daylight hours are filled with hikers, canoeists, and photographers capturing its natural grandeur. But once the sun dips behind the mountains, the lake takes on a different character. Shadows lengthen over the water, the forest grows unnervingly quiet, and a chill wind drifts across the surface, as if carrying the breath of something unseen. It is in these hours that the eerie tales of Jasper come to life. Hikers on the lakeshore trail often report the unsettling sensation of being followed. The soft crunch of footsteps falls into rhythm behind them, close enough to suggest a presence, yet when they turn, the trail is empty. The sound does not belong to animals. Experienced travelers say it is too deliberate, too measured. Instead, it carries the cadence of human steps, as though someone walks just a few paces behind. Some visitors have quickened their pace to shake off the unseen follower, only to find the phantom footsteps matching them stride for stride. For those who stop completely, the sound continues for a few moments longer, as though whatever lingers needs time to realize it has been noticed. Even more chilling are the accounts of figures seen moving along the shoreline. Campers watching the lake by moonlight sometimes spot pale silhouettes walking with slow, steady strides, their shapes faint but unmistakably human. These apparitions appear near the water's edge, drifting along the mist like travelers from another time. Some vanish abruptly when approached, dissolving into the air as though they were never there. Others linger, their outlines flickering in the dim light until swallowed by the darkness of the forest. Witnesses often describe feeling a wave of sorrow or heaviness after such sightings, as if the land itself carries the grief of those who once struggled here and never returned home. The origins of these hauntings are tangled with the history of Jasper's wilderness. Before the creation of the national park, the area was both a homeland and a travel route for indigenous peoples, whose oral traditions carry deep connections to the spirits of the land. The waters of Malign Lake, known in some legends as places of mystery and transformation, were considered spiritually significant. Some say the apparitions seen today are echoes of ancestors watching over the land they once walked. Others suggest they are lost travelers or explorers, unable to find peace after perishing in this harsh wilderness. The early 20th century brought tourists and settlers who sought adventure in Jasper's remote beauty, but with it came stories of tragedy, harsh winters, accidents in the back country, and the unforgiving terrain claimed lives of those who underestimated nature's power. Local lore tells of prospectors who drowned in the icy waters of Malign Lake, their bodies never recovered. Could the figures along the shoreline be these restless souls, eternally pacing the edge of the water that betrayed them? There is also the curious case of Malign Canyon, a deep limestone gorge not far from the lake, where strange occurrences have been linked to the same spectral phenomena. Visitors there have described whispers echoing against the rock walls when no one else is near, and lights that flicker like lanterns deep in the canyon where no paths exist. These stories seem to weave together, suggesting a wider haunting that spans the Malign region of Jasper, a place where voices of the past bleed into the present. The park rangers, though cautious about fueling ghost stories, quietly acknowledge that Malign Lake has a reputation. Some have admitted to uneasy patrols at night, when the forest grows oppressively still and their radios pick up static without explanation. Fishermen who set out on the water at dawn tell of hearing soft murmurs drifting across the lake, like a conversation carried on the breeze, yet no boats are near. Others have glimpsed ripples forming on calm water, as if an unseen canoe had just passed by. Skeptics, of course, argue that such experiences can be explained by natural causes. Footsteps could be the echo of one's own movements, carried strangely by the terrain. Mist over the lake can create illusions that resemble figures. The howling wind in the canyon may sound like whispers, but even those who dismiss the supernatural admit that Jasper has a presence that unsettles the Minda. Vastness that makes people feel small and vulnerable. A silence so deep it convinces you something else must be listening. Yet for those who have stood on the shores of Malign Lake and seen the pale forms gliding by, explanations offer little comfort. They return from the park with eyes a little wider, voices a little quieter, and the conviction that some parts of Jasper are not as empty as they appear. The land holds memory, and in the valleys and waters of Alberta's most beautiful wilderness, those memories sometimes take shape. The next time a visitor wanders along Malign Lake at twilight, they may find the path behind them marked by footsteps that do not belong. They may pause and feel the air grow heavy, or see a flicker of movement along the shore. And if they wait long enough, They may glimpse one of Jasper's wandering figures, caught between the living world and the endless silence of the mountains. For in Jasper National Park, beauty and mystery walk hand in hand, and the wilderness never truly sleeps. The St. Lawrence River, stretching over 1,000 kilometers from Lake Ontario to the Gulf of St. Lawrence, is one of the most important waterways in North America. It has carried canoes of indigenous peoples, ships of French explorers, British naval fleets, and steamers full of immigrants seeking new lives. But beneath its glistening surface lies a darker story, with centuries of tragedy, warfare, and loss. The river has earned its reputation as one of the most haunted waterways in Canada. Those who travel its shores or cross its waters after dark often speak of strange encounters, phantom ships, ghostly soldiers, and lights that dance across the water before vanishing into the night. The War of 1812 left its mark on this river. Many battles were fought along its waters, and countless soldiers perished in its currents. Locals tell of seeing spectral figures in tattered uniforms standing silently along the banks, their faces pale and hollow, as though still keeping watch over the river they died defending. Canoeists and boaters sometimes report hearing the faint cries of men in distress, voices shouting orders in English or French, carried by the wind across the waves. Some believe these are the echoes of drowned soldiers, trapped forever in the current, their last moments replaying in an endless loop. Perhaps the most chilling legends involve the phantom ships that are said to sail the St. Lawrence on stormy nights. Fishermen have told stories of seeing massive sailing vessels from centuries past emerging from the fog, their lanterns glowing eerily, their sails ragged but somehow full of wind. These ships drift silently, gliding through the mist without sound, only to vanish when approached. One popular tale describes a ship fully engulfed in flames, racing across the water before suddenly disappearing without leaving a trace. For generations, residents along the riverbanks have claimed to see this fiery ghost ship, interpreting it as a harbinger of death or disaster. The mystery of the phantom lights adds to the river's supernatural lore. On quiet nights, glowing orbs appear on the surface of the water, dancing and flickering like lanterns. They drift for a time, then wink out suddenly, leaving no reflection or source behind. Sailors of old believed these were the souls of the drowned, guiding or warning those who traveled the river. Others thought they were trickster spirits, luring travelers into danger. Modern witnesses still report these lights, describing them as bluish or golden in hue, moving against the current in ways no natural light should. The St. Lawrence has also been the site of countless shipwrecks, adding to its haunted reputation. Storms can rise quickly, and the river's treacherous currents have claimed many vessels over the centuries. Divers exploring wrecks along the river floor have described unsettling experiences, hearing muffled voices, feeling icy hands brush against them, or glimpsing shadowy forms moving in the silt around them. Some refuse to dive again, shaken by encounters they cannot explain. Indigenous peoples of the region have their own legends tied to the St. Lawrence. Speaking of water spirits that dwell beneath its surface, known by some names as the river guardians, these beings were said to watch over the flow of the river and punish those who disrespected its waters. Tales persist of canoes capsizing in calm water, or travelers being dragged under by unseen hands. Some believe the restless souls of drowned warriors and explorers mingle with these older spirits, creating a convergence of energies that makes the river particularly active with supernatural phenomena. One chilling story passed down among Quebec residents tells of a fisherman who, late at night, saw a small boat drifting with a lantern glowing in its bow. He rowed closer, thinking it was someone in need of help, but when he reached the craft, it was empty. The lantern remained burning, though no one tended it. As he tried to pull the boat in, it dissolved into mist before his eyes, leaving him trembling in the dark. Travelers who stay near the riverbanks sometimes awaken at night to the sound of footsteps moving across gravel, though no one is there. Campers have reported hearing splashing, followed by voices calling out in languages long vanished from the region. Others describe a feeling of being watched, as though countless unseen eyes linger just beyond the tree line. For some, the river carries a weight, a presence that cannot be explained simply by its size or history. To this day, the St. Lawrence River remains a place of beauty and mystery. Its waters connect cities and provinces, linking past and present in a flowing current of time. But for those who linger after sunset, the river reveals another side, one shaped by tragedy, folklore, and haunting echoes. Phantom ships still sail its waves. Soldiers from forgotten battles march along its banks, and ghostly lantern lights drift where no human hand carries them. The St. Lawrence is not just a river. It is a restless spirit, carrying the memories of centuries within its depths. The rugged beauty of Gros Morne National Park in Newfoundland has long been celebrated as one of the most breathtaking natural landscapes in Canada. Towering cliffs, deep fjords carved by ancient glaciers, and a coastline where the Atlantic pounds endlessly against the rocks make the park feel both timeless and otherworldly. Yet behind its dramatic vistas lies a tapestry of ghostly tales that generations of locals and visitors have whispered about. It is said that in Gros Morne, the line between the natural and the supernatural is thinner than anywhere else in Newfoundland. Strange voices echo through the fjords, phantom figures are glimpsed on the water, and hikers often return with chilling stories of hearing their names called when they are utterly alone. For centuries, fishermen have cast their nets along the shores of Gros Morne. Many of them were hardened men of the sea, raised on superstition and attuned to the strange moods of the ocean. It is among these communities that the earliest ghost stories of the park were born. Fishermen would often tell of nights when the fog rolled in so thick that it seemed to swallow the world whole. On those nights, as they rowed back to shore, they claimed to hear voices carried over the waves, long, mournful cries that seemed to come from somewhere just out of sight. Some believed these were the voices of drowned sailors, calling endlessly for help that would never come. Others thought they were omens, warnings that the sea was about to take another life. There are also tales of phantom figures that appear on the water, especially near the entrance to the fjords. Men hauling nets have looked out into the mist and seen shapes standing upright upon the waves, as though walking across the surface of the sea. These figures, described as shadowy and indistinct, never linger long. The moment they are noticed, they fade into the fog or vanish entirely. Old fishermen often refuse to talk about them directly, fearing that even acknowledging these visions might invite tragedy on their next voyage. But the hauntings of Gros Morne are not confined to the ocean. Hikers who wander the trails, especially those that trace the shoreline of Western Brook Pond and the high cliffs above it, speak of hearing footsteps following them in the twilight hours. At first, the sounds are faint twigs snapping, gravel crunching, the soft thud of a boot on damp earth. Yet when the traveler stops to listen, the footsteps stop too. When they resume walking, the sounds start again, always just a few paces behind. Some have turned around to find nothing but empty paths stretching back into the forest. Others have felt as though they were being watched, the sensation so strong that the hair rose on their necks, yet no one was ever visible. Perhaps the most chilling reports are of hikers who claim to have heard their own names whispered in the wilderness. Imagine walking a trail at dusk, the sky darkening over the fjords, when suddenly you hear your name spoken aloud, soft, but clear enough that there can be no mistake. Some describe it as a whisper that seems to come from the trees themselves. Others say it comes from behind them, carried on the wind. When they turn, the forest stands silent and still. More than one visitor has fled the trails after such an experience, convinced that something not of this world was calling to them. Locals often connect these strange voices and figures to the history of the land. The waters off Gros Morne have claimed countless lives over the centuries. Fishermen lost in storms, shipwrecked crews, and explorers who ventured too far into dangerous seas. The cliffs and fjords, beautiful though they are, have also seen tragedy, with falls, avalanches, and accidents leaving their mark on families in the region. Many believe the voices are the lingering echoes of those lives cut short, replaying endlessly against the stone walls of the fjords and across the waters of the bay. Some legends speak of the Micmac people, the original inhabitants of the land, who considered these mountains and waters sacred. According to folklore, spirits dwell in the high peaks and deep valleys, guardians of the land who reveal themselves only to those who are alone and vulnerable. Hearing your name in the wilderness, some say, is a sign that these spirits are testing your courage or luring you deeper into their realm. Even today, with Gros Morne, a celebrated national park visited by thousands every year, the stories persist. Rangers and tourists alike have their accounts. The late-night camper who awoke to the sound of murmured conversation outside his tent, though no one else was nearby. The couple who saw a lantern light bobbing on the fjord at midnight, only for it to wink out instantly when they called to it. The group of hikers who all heard the same woman's voice call a name none of them recognized. The natural beauty of Gros Morne is undeniable, but it is precisely this vast, untamed wilderness that makes the supernatural tales so believable. The cliffs rise like ancient sentinels, the fjords are so deep they seem bottomless, and the winds carry with them voices that may belong to the sea, the mountains, or something else entirely. To walk the trails of Gros Morne is to immerse yourself in a land that feels timeless, where the voices of the past can still be heard if you listen closely enough. The fishermen's phantom figures, the hikers' whispered names, and the mournful cries across the water all weave together into a tapestry of mystery that lingers as strongly as the salt air itself. Whether one believes these tales or not, there is no denying that Gros Morne National Park holds an atmosphere unlike anywhere else in Canada. A place where the natural world and the supernatural seem forever entwined. Nestled deep in the heart of the Canadian Rockies, Lake Louise is one of the most famous and breathtaking natural wonders in the world. Its turquoise waters shimmer beneath the jagged peaks of the surrounding mountains, drawing countless visitors each year who come to marvel at its beauty. Yet, for all its serene elegance, Lake Louise carries with it a darker legacy. Beneath the calm surface of the lake and the still silence of the surrounding wilderness lie tales of tragedy, loss, and restless spirits who have never left the alpine landscape. Stories of hauntings around Lake Louise stretch back to the earliest days of mountaineering in the Rockies. Long before the luxury hotels, ski slopes, and trails brought in tourists, the region was both a place of inspiration and danger. The sharp glaciers, unpredictable avalanches, and sheer rock faces claimed the lives of many climbers who came seeking adventure. Though their bodies were often never recovered, locals whisper that their spirits linger forever bound to the mountain heights they could not conquer. Hikers and visitors frequently report ghostly silhouettes drifting across the frozen lake in the depths of winter. When the moonlight catches the surface of the ice, figures appear as faint shadows, moving silently as if crossing from one side to the other. Some describe them as mountaineers, dressed in outdated climbing gear, their outlines blurred and indistinct. Others insist they are little more than wisps of mist, shaped like people, only visible for a fleeting second before dissolving back into the night. Yet, for those who have seen these apparitions, the memory is chilling and unforgettable. The glaciers above Lake Louise are equally notorious. Known for their beauty, they have also been the site of countless accidents over the decades. Experienced climbers have been caught in deadly falls, avalanches have swept away groups of explorers, and storms have left travelers stranded in the high alpine passes. More than a few never made it back. On quiet nights, when the wind drifts softly through the mountain passes, hikers claim to hear faint cries of distress echoing down from the ice fields above. These sounds, sometimes panicked, sometimes mournful, are said to come from those who perished, forever calling out for help that will never arrive. One particularly well-known tale involves the Plain of Six Glaciers, a stunning trail that winds past the lake and up into the shadow of the mountains. For decades, climbers and guides have told of encountering strange presences there. Some describe hearing footsteps crunching on the snow behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Others have spoken of the feeling of being watched, a prickling sensation on the back of the neck as they cross the icy terrain. A few even claim to have seen full apparitions, ghostly climbers trudging along the trails with lanterns in hand, their faces hidden in the shadows before vanishing without a trace. Fishermen on Lake Louise in the early 1900s also had their own share of eerie stories. Before the modern ban on fishing, Some who cast their lines into the lake swore they saw pale hands rise briefly from the depths, vanishing before they could react. One tale tells of a man who fell through the ice while fishing in winter. His body was never found, but ever since, locals claim that when the lake freezes over, his figure can sometimes be seen beneath the ice, drifting just out of reach. Not all of the tales center on mountaineers. Indigenous stories from the area speak of spirits inhabiting the waters and the mountains long before Europeans arrived. Some elders tell of guardian beings that dwell in the glacial peaks, protecting the land but punishing those who disrespect it. Visitors who wander too far from the trails or who act carelessly in the wilderness sometimes report sudden feelings of dread, overwhelming fatigue, or an inexplicable urge to turn back. For believers, these sensations are warnings from the old spirits of the land. What makes Lake Louise's hauntings especially unsettling is the contrast between beauty and terror. Tourists by day marvel at the pristine scenery, the jewel-like water, the soaring cliffs, the glaciers glittering in the sun. By night, however, when the lake grows dark and the winds sweep through the valleys, a heavy silence falls, broken only by whispers of the past. It is then that the lake reveals its other face, not a place of peace, but a stage for tragedies that echo across time. Some visitors insist that these ghostly experiences are merely tricks of the senses, the vast openness of the lake, the way sound carries through the mountains, the strange illusions created by mist and moonlight. All of these can conjure strange impressions in the mind. But those who have seen the spectral figures crossing the ice, or who have heard the cries from the glaciers, argue that there is something more here, something that refuses to be explained away so easily. Lake Louise is, above all, a place of memory. Each climber who vanished into the mountains, each soul lost to the snow or water, left something behind. Perhaps it is not surprising that in a landscape so dramatic, where the line between life and death has always been thin, echoes of those lost still remain. Visitors today may come for the breathtaking views, but for some, the lasting memory is not of beauty, is of a haunting presence that lingers long after they leave. Lake Louise may be one of the crown jewels of Canada's wilderness, but to those who know its darker stories, it is also a reminder. Even the most beautiful places can harbor ghosts. The lake is still, the mountains are timeless, but within their silence dwell the voices of the past, forever calling across the ice and water, flowing over 1,700 miles through the Northwest Territories. The Mackenzie River is Canada's longest waterway, carving its way through remote forests, tundra, and vast wilderness. Its serene beauty belies a darker, hidden side, one shaped by centuries of travel, hardship, and countless tragedies. For those who navigate its waters or wander along its banks, the Mackenzie is more than a river. It is a repository of restless spirits and eerie encounters that continue to haunt the land. Indigenous legends speak of the river as a living entity, a force both protective and vengeful. Many stories describe spirits inhabiting the riverbanks, some guarding sacred areas, others mourning lost lives. Travelers have long shared warnings about respecting the waters. And those who ignore the old tales sometimes encounter experiences that defy explanation. The Mackenzie has a way of revealing the past, drawing it up like silt from the riverbed, letting it touch the present in ghostly whispers. Over the decades, numerous travelers, trappers, and explorers have perished along the Mackenzie. The river is treacherous, with sudden rapids, hidden sandbars, and ice flows that claim lives even of experienced navigators. Stories from locals recount canoes that vanish mysteriously or float downstream, sometimes empty, sometimes with figures that cannot be explained. Yet, the most chilling tales involve ghostly campsites that appear suddenly along the riverbanks. Campers and river travelers speak of arriving at seemingly empty stretches of the Mackenzie, only to find small encampments already set up. Fires burn brightly in the cold twilight, tents stand upright, and supplies are arranged neatly, as if left by human hands. But when approached, the entire scene vanishes. Figures around the fire, sometimes seen in silhouette against the flames, are gone in an instant, but their voices are met with nothing but a hollow echo. The ghostly campsites are not always benign. Many describe feeling a heavy presence, a sudden drop in temperature, or a sense of dread that presses on the chest. Travelers report hearing the sound of laughter or murmured conversation from nowhere, only to find the area completely empty. Some say the river itself seems to pulse with these restless energies, as if remembering every life it has claimed and projecting it back to the living. The Mackenzie does not forgive easily, and the echoes of tragedy are never far from its surface. Fishermen along the river have their own tales. In the dead of night, they hear the sound of paddles slicing through water that should be still. Lantern lights bob along the far shore, moving with the rhythm of a ghostly boat crew. When approached, the lights vanish, leaving only the reflection of stars on the black water. It is as if the river plays with perception, allowing brief glimpses of the past before withdrawing them, leaving the witness unsure of what they saw, whether it was real. The wilderness along the Mackenzie is sparsely populated, and isolation seems to heighten the supernatural activity. Hunters and trappers tell of hearing footsteps along snow-covered banks where no one has walked, or seeing figures in traditional dress staring silently from the tree line. Some claim to have glimpsed long-dead explorers, their clothing frozen in time, staring toward the river as if awaiting a signal to continue on a journey that can never end. These sightings, fleeting as they are, leave a lasting impression, and many travelers avoid the river at night, fearing encounters they cannot rationalize. The river is not only haunted by human spirits. Indigenous stories speak of water beings and shape-shifting creatures that dwell in the depths. Some claim these entities are drawn to sorrow, responding to grief or tragedy along the river. Hunters report sudden disturbances in the water, objects floating to the surface, or strange ripples that have no natural explanation. Those who respect the river's ancient warnings may pass safely, but those who trespass lightly or act recklessly sometimes experience more direct and terrifying encounters. They saw a fully intact campsite on the shore, with a fire burning and figures moving about. As they approached, the mist thickened unnaturally, and the figures froze, staring silently at them. When the mist cleared, the campsite was gone, leaving only empty banks and frozen footprints that disappeared into the soil. The travelers never spoke of the incident to outsiders, but the story persists among locals as a warning. The river does not easily release what belongs to it. Even in modern times, sightings along the Mackenzie continue. Adventure tourists, scientists, and canoe enthusiasts all report unexplained phenomena. Cold spots that appear and vanish, whispers carried by the wind, or shadowy figures glimpsed in the corner of the eye. Cameras and recording devices often fail to capture these events, leaving only eyewitness testimony and a lingering sense of unease. Those who have experienced the river's supernatural presence describe it as deeply primal, an encounter with something older than any modern settlement, older than any map, a force that cannot be tamed. The Mackenzie River is, in many ways, a living monument to the past. Every bend, rapid, and quiet pool holds stories of human ambition, tragedy, and loss. The ghostly campsites, the shadowy figures, and the whispered cries are reminders that the wilderness keeps its own memory, and that memory can reach out to those who pass through. Travelers today may come for the breathtaking scenery, the wildlife, or the adventure of navigating Canada's longest river, but for some, the most lasting impression is of something unseen, something watching from the banks, waiting silently in the mists. Flowing and endless, the Mackenzie River carries with it centuries of stories both tragic and mysterious. Its waters are beautiful, vast, and untamed, yet they hold echoes of the past that remain ever present. Those who journey along its course may witness glimpses of ghostly campsites or feel the weight of unseen eyes upon them. And when night falls, the river is no longer merely a natural wonder, it is a haunted corridor through time, with a living brush against the shadows of the lost. Point Pelee, Ontario, is often celebrated for its natural beauty, the southernmost tip of mainland Canada, stretching into Lake Erie. Its marshes, forests, and winding trails draw birdwatchers, hikers, and photographers. But beneath the scenic vistas lies a hidden, eerie world, a place where the past refuses to rest and the present feels haunted by whispers of another time. Travelers who venture into the park as quiet corners speak of experiences that go far beyond the ordinary, suggesting that Point Pelée is more than just a sanctuary for wildlife. It is a landscape imbued with the restless spirits of the land. For centuries, indigenous peoples inhabited and traveled through Point Pelée. The Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and other nations left their mark upon the land, and oral traditions speak of rituals, ceremonies, and spiritual guardianship that connected people to the marshes, rivers, and forests. Today, some visitors report hearing drums and chanting echoing faintly through the trees, carried by the wind in the dead of night. The sounds appear to emerge from nowhere, sometimes from dense thickets or across open marshland, and yet they carry the unmistakable rhythm of ceremonies long past. Those who have heard these voices describe them as both mesmerizing and chilling, stirring an uncanny sense of presences, if the spirits themselves are moving unseen among the reeds. Shadow figures are another frequent occurrence. Hikers have reported glimpses of dark shapes flitting between trees, their forms humanoid but blur, impossible to focus on. Sometimes, these figures appear along the edges of the trails, vanishing when approached. Other times, they seem to drift silently across open fields or marshes, vanishing into the mist before they can be fully identified. Locals insist that these are the spirits of those who walked the land centuries ago, lingering in a realm between the living and the dead, guarding the forests they once called home. Marshes, especially at dusk or in foggy conditions, seem to amplify the park's eerie presence. Visitors have recounted walking along the boardwalks or narrow trails, when the wind carries soft murmurs, whispers in languages long forgotten, or cries that echo across the water. Sometimes the sounds are accompanied by sudden drops in temperature or the feeling of unseen eyes watching from the cattails. Even in daylight, there is a sense that the landscape itself is alive with memory, holding traces of human activity and spiritual energy that never faded. Birdwatchers and photographers sometimes encounter unexplained phenomena. Cameras may malfunction when pointed toward certain parts of the marsh, or flashes of light appear on photographs that are not present to the naked eye. Some have seen fog or mist swirl unnaturally around open areas, forming shapes that suggest figures moving or gesturing. Others report hearing footsteps along the trails, following them at a distance, only for the sound to vanish when they pause or turn. It is as if the park itself is testing intruders, allowing glimpses of another dimension before retreating into silence. The lake's edge carries its own stories. Point Pelée extends into Lake Erie, and the waters surrounding it have claimed lives over the centuries. Some visitors describe ghostly figures appearing near the shoreline, sometimes glimpsed wading through shallow waters or standing on sandbars that seem to appear only at low tide. Others report the sensation of being followed when walking along the lakeside, the air thick with a quiet presence that cannot be seen but is undeniably felt. Locals speak of fishermen or campers who have heard disembodied voices calling across the water, urging them away from certain areas, though no one is visible. Nightfall heightens the park's haunted qualities. Trails that feel calm and serene in daylight become places of unease after dark. Hikers recount hearing soft chanting carried through the trees, the rhythm of drums echoing in patterns that suggest ritual. Shadows lengthen, appearing to move independently of the wind. The marshes seem to breathe, sending waves of fog across the trails, and the air grows heavy with a sense of unseen observers. Those who have experienced it describe an awareness that the land itself is alive, filled with lingering spirits who remember and protect the sacred spaces they once occupied. Even the vegetation seems to hold echoes of the past. Trees along the trails are reported to creak or sway despite still air, as though moved by invisible hands. Leaves sometimes fall in patterns that appear deliberate, and reeds along the marshes ripple when there is no breeze. These small phenomena create a cumulative impression that Point Pelée is watching, reacting, and communicating in subtle ways. Visitors leave the park with the sensation that they have stepped into a space where the boundary between the living and the spirit world is porous, where memories of past lives are stored in every blade of grass, every rustle of leaves, and every ripple across the marsh waters. Point Pelée, with its forests, marshes, and trails, is a place of extraordinary natural beauty, but it is also a place where the echoes of history remain palpable. Drums and chants, shadowy figures, and mysterious whispers create an atmosphere that is both enchanting and unsettling. Whether one experiences these phenomena as spiritual guardians, echoes of past inhabitants, or simply the imagination responding to the isolated wilderness, the stories persist, handed down from hikers, campers, and locals alike. For those who venture into Point Pelée, the park is never merely a natural refuge. It is a living reminder of the centuries of human connection, struggle, and ceremony embedded within the land. The spirits of the past seem to linger, walking among the marshes, drifting through the forests, and watching along the shoreline. Every visit carries the possibility of encountering these unseen presences, hearing their calls, or feeling their gaze. The haunting beauty of Point Pelée lies in this convergence of natural wonder and spectral memory, a place where the land remembers, and the living brush against the mysteries of the past. The Magnetic Hill in New Brunswick is famous for its curious optical illusion. Cars appear to roll uphill against gravity when left in neutral. Tourists flock to witness this strange phenomenon. But beyond the quirky attraction lies a more chilling story, one whispered by locals and recounted by those who experienced its uncanny presence. The hill is said to harbor spirits, and those who venture here after dusk often report encounters that go far beyond simple optical tricks. For decades, people have spoken of ghostly hands that seem to push cars uphill. Some visitors, skeptical at first, leave their vehicles in neutral, only to feel a sudden, inexplicable nudge. While some chalk it up to the illusion, others swear that the force is tangible, a pressure on the back of the car, as though invisible hands are guiding it upward. Drivers report sudden drops in temperature inside the vehicle, a shiver that runs down the spine, and the unsettling sensation that someone or something is present with them. Foggy evenings bring the hill's most dramatic encounters. Locals warn travelers never to visit when mist rolls across the landscape. In the thick fog, shadowy figures have been glimpsed moving along the roadside, vanishing when approached. These figures are often described as pale, indistinct, and human-like, sometimes appearing to wave or beckon. Hikers and nighttime visitors speak of an eerie awareness, the feeling of unseen eyes watching from the fog. Even those who try to dismiss it as imagination find themselves gripping their car doors or slowing to a cautious crawl. Senses heightened and every rustle of trees amplified. Some say the supernatural presence of Magnetic Hill is tied to its history. Before the attraction became known to tourists, the land was home to settlers and travelers who faced countless accidents along the winding roads. Legends speak of lost travelers who never returned, and locals whisper that these spirits remain bound to the hill, reaching out to the living. Ghostly figures are often seen along the old paths, appearing to guide or warn those who ventured too close. Some have reported hearing faint cries or murmurs carried by the wind, indistinct but unmistakably human. Even in daylight, Magnetic Hill maintains an air of the uncanny. Tourists describe sudden chills when standing near the roadside, and some claim to see shapes moving just beyond their peripheral vision. Objects, like loose stones or fallen branches, sometimes appear to shift of their own accord. Hikers have told stories of the fog descending suddenly, obscuring familiar landmarks, and when it lifts, they find themselves inexplicably closer to the hill's crest than they expected, as though the land itself has subtly moved. Visitors often share stories of eerie encounters with other vehicles. Drivers who arrive at the hill at night sometimes report headlights flickering or cars in front of them slowing and speeding without reason. Others claim that shadowy passengers appear in their vehicles' shapes seen in rearview mirrors that vanish the moment the observer looks directly. These experiences are consistent enough that the hill has earned a reputation as one of New Brunswick's most haunted locations. Locals tell tales of people feeling compelled to leave offerings near the roadside, small tokens, candles, or flowers, gestures meant to appease the spirits or seek their protection. Some believe that doing so reduces the likelihood of frightening encounters, while others suggest it encourages interaction, drawing the unseen closer. Whether real or ritualistic, these acts reveal the respect and fear that Magnetic Hill inspires. The hill's optical illusion, while drawing crowds for amusement, becomes secondary to the accounts of those who sense the supernatural. What begins as a curious trick of the eye often transforms into a deeply unsettling experience. Visitors recount the sensation of the hill alive under their feet, of a force that is not entirely natural, a presence that lingers even after they leave. Cars appear to roll uphill, but the feeling is less about gravity and more about being guided or observed by something beyond the material world. Foggy evenings are when the hill's spirits seem most active. Figures appear briefly at the edge of visibility, sometimes human, sometimes distorted, with features impossible to describe. Travelers report hearing whispers that seem to originate from the very ground, soft words that vanish as quickly as they arrive. Footsteps follow visitors along empty roads, yet when they turn, the path is deserted. The combination of visual illusions, fog, and the unknown creates an environment where the mind senses something more than the eye can perceive, a place where natural and supernatural collide. Some ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts visit Magnetic Hill regularly, recording EVPs and temperature fluctuations. They often report sudden cold spots, unexplained sounds, and fleeting shadow figures on camera. While skeptics attribute much to suggestion or the optical trick, the consistency of reports across decades and witnesses suggests an inexplicable energy, something that lingers on the hill and interacts with those who come too close. Despite tour, perhaps because of its haunted reputation, Magnetic Hill remains a popular destination. Tourists come for the novelty, but those who linger into evening hours often leave with more than a story about gravity-defying cars. They carry the memory of cold hands brushing their shoulders, whispers in the wind, and glimpses of figures that vanish when confronted. The hill's beauty and mystery merge into an experience that is both fascinating and unsettling, leaving visitors with a lingering impression that some forces cannot be seen, only felt. Magnetic Hill is a reminder that even a simple road can carry echoes of the past, and a place that seems playful in daylight may hold secrets that only reveal themselves under the cover of night. Ghostly hands, shadowy figures, and whispers in the fog create a landscape where the natural world intersects with the supernatural. Those who venture here are part of a long line of witnesses to its eerie energy, drawn to test the hill's curious gravity, only to find themselves confronted with forces that defy explanation. The Magnetic Hill is more than an optical illusion. It is a place where the living brush against the spectral, a haunting that lingers long after the fog has lifted. The Whitehorse Rapids in the Yukon are as beautiful as they are treacherous. Carved by centuries of rushing water, these rapids were once a vital and deadly obstacle for gold rush prospectors navigating the Yukon River. Today, the area draws adventurers and tourists seeking the wilderness. But alongside the natural beauty lies a reputation steeped in haunting legends. Locals and travelers alike speak of ghostly phenomena that turn the rapids into a place of lingering sorrow and supernatural warning. During the gold rush of the late 19th century, countless prospectors risked life and limb. Along this stretch of the Yukon River, canoes and small boats were often swept away by the powerful currents, and many never reached safety. Over time, the waters earned a reputation as a graveyard for those who underestimated its strength. Even now, stories persist that the rapids are haunted by the spirits of those lost, their tragic deaths leaving a permanent mark on the river. Visitors to Whitehorse Rapids have long reported hearing inexplicable screams rising from the water, particularly on foggy mornings or in the quiet of dusk. These sounds are described as piercing. Canoeists and kayakers often speak of feeling a sudden chill or an eerie presence pressing in as they navigate the waves, as if unseen eyes are watching their every move. Some paddlers claim to hear phantom commands or the sound of paddles striking water behind them, though they see no other boat. One of the most common tales involves phantom boats caught in the current. Witnesses recount seeing the outlines of old-fashioned canoes or rafts, often shrouded in mist, drifting along the rapids. These vessels appear eerily preserved, their shapes just barely visible in the fog. Some report that figures can be glimpsed inside, hunched or paddling, yet when approached, both the boat and its occupants vanish without a trace. The phenomenon is so well known that local guides warn newcomers about the possibility, suggesting that these are the spirits of prospectors forever trapped in the rapids that claim them. Many believe that the voices and ghostly boats are tied to the river's tragic history. During the gold rush, travelers relied heavily on the Yukon River for transportation and supplies, but the rapids were unpredictable and violent. Canoes were dashed against rocks, and entire crews could be swept away in minutes. The sheer number of deaths, combined with the desperation of those attempting to navigate the waters, is said to have left a residual energy in the rapids. Some Yukon elders describe the area as cursed, a place where grief and fear are absorbed by the river itself, creating a haunting that lingers across generations. Hikers along the riverbanks often report their own encounters. On quiet days, some claim to see ghostly figures standing at the water's edge, silently watching the rapids churn. Others have found footprints appearing in mud or snow, only to vanish when approached. Travelers have even described feeling sudden pressure on their shoulders. Campers nearby have woken to the sound of water lapping against the shore. Though the river remains calm, or to the sensation of being splashed by unseen forces in the night, the phenomenon is not limited to sight and sound. Some people report an overwhelming sense of sorrow or dread when near Whitehorse Rapids, a sensation that seems to originate from the river itself. It is as if the cumulative fear and pain of past victims linger, touching anyone who comes too close. Even experienced guides and longtime residents admit that the rapids have a way of unsettling visitors, particularly when the fog rolls in or the wind carries the cries of the water over the surrounding forest. Local stories tell of canoeists who ignored warnings and attempted to navigate the rapids during low light or misty conditions, only to encounter terrifying apparitions. In some accounts, the spirits appear to mimic their movements, paddling alongside or even ahead, leading travelers deeper into dangerous waters. Panic often ensues, and while many regain control and escape unharmed, some are so shaken that they leave the area forever, haunted by the memory of what they saw, what they felt. The ghostly presence at Whitehorse Rapids is not always malevolent. Some claim that the spirits act as guardians, guiding or warning those who are in genuine danger. Experienced paddlers and guides often interpret sudden shifts in wind, ripples in the water, or eerie sounds as protective signs, though these same phenomena can terrify the unprepared. Whether these spirits are warnings or echoes of tragedy remains a matter of debate, but the consistency of sightings and experiences over generations has cemented the rapids' reputation as a haunted and mysterious place. Even today, as adventurers approach Whitehorse Rapids, the tales of ghostly screams and phantom boats remain as strong as ever. The river continues to challenge all who enter its currents, both physically and psychologically. Canoeists, kayakers, and hikers are advised to respect the waters and the history that runs through them. For the rapids carry not only danger, but also the restless energy of those who were lost long ago. The Bruce Peninsula in Ontario, a region celebrated for its rugged cliffs, hidden caves, and crystal-clear turquoise waters, is often described as one of Canada's most beautiful natural landscapes. Yet beneath its breathtaking scenery lies a darker, more mysterious side, one that has drawn whispers of hauntings and ghostly encounters for generations. Locals, hikers, and divers alike speak of experiences that defy explanation, painting the peninsula as a place where natural beauty and supernatural forces coexist uneasily. The cliffs along the peninsula, particularly near the shores of Georgian Bay, are some of the most commonly reported areas for ghost sightings. Hikers have described seeing fleeting figures standing near the edge, often appearing partially transparent, as if fading in and out of reality. These apparitions are rarely threatening, but they evoke a deep sense of unease. Some witnesses report hearing voices carried by the wind snatches of conversation, distant laughter, or cries that seem to rise from the rocks themselves. The more daring explorers have attempted to approach these figures, only to find them vanish into thin air, leaving behind the lingering chill of something otherworldly. Shipwrecks beneath the waters of the Bruce Peninsula add another layer of haunting. The peninsula's coastline is dotted with sunken vessels, remnants of storms, and accidents from centuries past. Divers who explore these submerged sites often speak of encounters that go beyond the ordinary. Some describe seeing shadowy shapes moving among the wreckage, almost as if the ships are still occupied by their long-deceased crews. Others report hearing muffled voices or the sounds of creaking wood and clanging metal, though no current currents or marine life could account for them. Many divers describe a sense of being watched, a presence that seems aware of their every movement, urging them to leave before they too become part of the peninsula's spectral narrative. Local legends suggest that these hauntings are tied to both the land and the water. Indigenous stories speak of spirits guarding sacred places along the cliffs and caves, appearing when the natural balance is disrupted. These spirits are said to have a dual nature, protective of the land, yet capable of manifesting fear in those who venture too close without respect. Hikers and campers often report a sudden drop in temperature or an unshakable feeling of being observed, particularly near the more isolated cliff edges or within narrow caves. Some claim that the rocks themselves seem to whisper, a subtle, eerie hum that echoes through the canyons and overhangs. The underwater realm of the Bruce Peninsula is no less mysterious. Many shipwrecks rest at varying depths along the rocky shoreline. Their skeletal remains, a testament to the lake's historical dangers. Divers who explore these sites often recount seeing glowing orbs or faint human shapes drifting silently through the water. These apparitions sometimes mimic the motions of those exploring the wrecks, appearing at a distance and then vanishing when approached. A few divers report hearing urgent whispers, as though the spirits are calling out warnings or sharing remnants of their last moments. Even those who enter the water during broad daylight report an overwhelming sense of unease, as if the lake itself remembers the tragedies it has claimed. The caves along the peninsula are equally notorious. Some have glimpsed shadowy figures at the cave entrances, retreating deeper into darkness before they can be identified. These caves, often narrow and winding, seem to amplify the paranormal phenomena, turning simple echoes into eerie voices that follow explorers as they move. Campers near the caves report disturbed sleep, waking to the sound of whispers or the sensation of unseen presences pressing close in the dark. Even the open trails of the Bruce Peninsula are not immune to ghostly tales. Hikers recount seeing figures in old-fashioned clothing walking along paths, only to disappear when approached. Others have found footprints in fresh snow or muddy trails with no visible source, leading into forests and cliffs where no human could have traveled unnoticed. Some say these are spirits tied to old settlements or travelers lost along the rugged landscape, forever wandering the areas where they met their end. The haunted reputation of the Bruce Peninsula has only grown as more people share their experiences. Photographs taken in the area sometimes reveal orbs, blurred figures, or inexplicable shadows that cannot be explained by natural light or camera defects. Local tourism guides occasionally hear stories of ghostly sightings from visitors, reinforcing the notion that the peninsula is a place where history, nature, and the supernatural intertwine. Despite or perhaps because of its haunted reputation, the Bruce Peninsula continues to draw adventurers, hikers, and divers. Many come seeking the raw beauty of the cliffs, caves, and turquoise waters, unaware of the spectral inhabitants that might observe them. Others are drawn by curiosity, hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghostly figures or to explore the underwater remnants of long-forgotten shipwrecks. Regardless of the reason, all who visit seem to agree on one thing. The Bruce Peninsula is not merely a landscape of natural wonders. It is a place where the past lingers, where lost souls wander cliffs and caves, and where the echoes of tragedy and mystery are felt in every gust of wind and every ripple in the water. The Bruce Peninsula serves as a reminder that even the most beautiful places can conceal dark secrets. Cliffs that gleam in sunlight may hide restless spirits. Turquoise waters that sparkle in summer may conceal shadowy forms beneath their surface. The caves and forests hold stories whispered from generation to generation, a mixture of legend and lived experience, waiting for those daring enough to encounter them. Here, beauty and fear coexist, creating a landscape that captivates, terrifies, and lingers in memory long after one has left its shores. Whether glimpsed from a cliffside trail, a dark cave, or beneath the water in a silent shipwreck, the ghostly presence of the Bruce Peninsula is unmistakable. Its haunted nature adds depth to its natural splendor, turning every hike, dive, or evening walk into an encounter with the unknown. In this place, the past is never truly gone, and the spirits of the peninsula continue to wander, silent observers of the living, reminding all who pass through that beauty and horror can exist side by side in the most extraordinary ways.